Okay, we are live. Welcome, everybody. We've got some human being, some strange demon from the Krakk universe. We're going to talk comics at random. What's that noise? Oh my God!
It's like a It's like a 3-year-old screaming.
It's the ComicKkrakk takeover. I think he's hungry.
Hello. How are you?
Feed him.
I've come to devour your comics.
Well, let me start by introducing. Whoops, I can never get to the right place.
Nope.
Oh. Anyway, that was ComicKkrakk. He just peeled off his outside skin, and he has become Terrence. And next to me at the top in the top box is LahRasa, and down below me is Earl Grey. And we are the floating unnamed comic book chat that appears on one of our channels each week, twice in a row for me. But I think next time, well, we'll see who it'll be next time. And so I'm trying to think. I'm so distracted by the Gakractus that I'm not sure where we're headed here. I did watch What If #2.
Oh, nice. Did you sob a little bit? I did.
Okay. You haven't seen it all yet?
No. I said, did you sob? I mean, I'm crying.
Sob. No, because I never watched Black Panther, so I don't have that connection to that actor that everyone's so sad. So that was the last performance of now I can't even remember his name, the guy who played the Black Panther.
Chadwick Boseman.
So it must have been recorded quite a long while ago. Didn't he die about a year ago?
Yeah, it was recorded a long time ago.
Yeah, at first I thought, well, maybe they're having someone else imitate his voice, but it was actually him.
No, me too. I actually thought at first, I was like, surely it's not him, but it was. After a while, it's like, yeah, definitely him, because of the way he was trying to put that African accent, and it definitely reminded me of Black Panther. What do you think about animation now? I mean, I've seen the first one, so what do you think about animation style?
It's growing on me. You know, it has that rotoscoped look. I assume it is rotoscoped, that they have real life actors that they're rotoscoping for most scenes. But they integrate it really well in all the fantasy bits and stuff. I think it just didn't hit me very strongly, the second one, because I couldn't even remember a lot of the plot points of Guardians of the Galaxy. So I couldn't remember how they had changed it, other than it being the noble T'Challa instead of the goofball original guy. I can't even remember his name.
Chris Pratt character, whatever he's
right.
The
original Star-Lord.
I think that supporting guy, you know, the guy who came in to basically arrest him, and he started going up like a crazy girl, like a fan girl, like oh my God, Star-Lord, you such a that guy. I think that guy is sold the whole show for me. I was really laughing. I remembered all most of the scenes, because it's kind of like, I mean, I like Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I think I watched a couple of times. I think I like the soundtrack a lot. I think that really worked for me as a movie itself. But all the scenes they were doing, it was like, okay, so you kind of rewatching with a little bit difference to it. Yeah. And I in generally, I absolutely loved it. I think it's great. But I don't know if it's like when you watch something, you kind of watch once again in animation form. And it's good. I mean, I like that to hear all the old actors are still there. They're doing the stuff. But so far, what if section, that one was a little bit more like for me, especially because of the guy is not there anymore. So no more Black Panther. What we know of Black Panther, it will be, because I really enjoyed Black Panther. I think it's one of the best Marvel movies anyway. First, because the visuals were great, the acting was absolutely superb, and I think it's one of the strongest movies we produced anyway. Action scene wise, everything just felt really nice. So in that sense, it felt like, okay, great. You know, you see him once again for last time, or hear him at least, you know, like that. But in general, the story, like I knew everything. I mean, like, kind of like just for him, that how they took him away and stuff like that. That was a little bit surprising. But so far, I don't know if it's all of them like this. It's entertaining, but it's nothing groundbreaking.
Right. The weirdest part, I'm assuming the two of you down below have not seen it.
I've just Googled it to get an impression of what you're talking about, actually.
Oh, right. It's on the Disney Channel, so I don't know whether you get that or want it even to get it. But the weirdest thing was, for me, was that Thanos was now a good guy and a member of their crew. And haha, I learned the right way to do things from Noble T'Challa. And so now I don't want to kill half the people in the universe, although I still think it was a good idea.
But he still had that, you know, like he always had that conversation, and he's like, no, genocide is not a good idea, but I think it's actually really good. You know, it's like, no, Thanos is no, it's still not a good idea. But you know, like he's like, no, it's not a good idea, man.
Damn,
do this.
politics. Genocide, not a good idea. Come on.
If you have Thanos on your team, doesn't that change the equation a lot? It seemed like he was just another crew member who could maybe punch a little harder than the other people.
Yeah, it just looked like a muscle, you know, like
it just felt strange to me. And there was why wasn't Rocket Raccoon and Groot in it?
Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know what. So I feel like I was missing something, some element.
And Gamora wasn't there either.
About. Right, right. Instead of Gamora, they. I don't know. They had the other daughter of
Nebula.
Show up. Nebula.
Yeah.
Anyway, I find What If interesting, but not mind blowing so far, I guess.
I mean, it's just that episode is basically for people just to get that Black Panther and that sound, you know, that I don't know because you haven't watched it, Black Panther, but that the specific drumming sound there is in the Black Panther. They was. Yeah, and then they were in that, and it just brings back the movie for me, which is like, as I say, very entertaining to me. So it was great for that sense. And I think a lot of people who liked it, I think they were liked it because of that whole, you know, just giving you.
Oh, did I freeze up, or is everyone else frozen?
No, just Rasa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We lost you for a minute, Rasa.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, probably. It's like, again, the minute I say something, I'll vanish like a magic.
Well, does anyone have other non-comics things they want to bring up? Or tangential stuff, or shall we dive into the comic?
Tangential stuff. I'm drinking Duckstein. And this here is really the brew of the Donaldists who I've spoken about when they meet together to discuss the old masterworks, the Bible of Karl Barks, and to interpret the sentences. I don't think that the brewery had Donald Duck in mind. It's just a little town that's called Duckstein.
So it's just adopted by the Donaldists.
Yep. But I thought perfectly.
Does it taste good?
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Nice.
Totally recommendable.
Totally amazing.
But if I got an even heavier tongue during the video, you know why.
Oh, okay. Oh, by the way, too,
Just excuse.
What If had Howard the Duck as well in there? So I don't know if that speculation thing.
That actually was one of my favorite little touches there when Howard the Duck was part of the collector's collection.
Yeah. Well, he was part of it in the original movie as well.
Was he also? Okay.
So it kind of in that sense, it was interesting to see that they even put him there and actually gave him more lines than in the movie itself. So that was entertaining enough. So he was helping Black Panthers for locations, and he's like, "Okay, just give me a second. I'm sipping my martini. Just one moment." So it was interesting and entertaining in that sense.
I listened to a podcast that had Mark Russell on it, the writer, you know, who did the Flintstones and various things, and he said he would like to write Howard the Duck.
Wow.
They haven't offered it to him yet, but I think he was putting it out there via that podcast. So that would be interesting. Well, before we talk about comics, let me just say hi to the people who've already joined us. We've got Monsieur Maurice, Ragamuffin, the Mighty Miss So, Jack Yo, the returning Tylox the Mighty, who we haven't seen in years, John Stout, who lives here in the Portland area. He doesn't have a channel, but he hangs out a lot on YouTube. We've got Tacky616, who has a cool channel. We've got Derek Magnus, Architectural Foam Panels and Columns, who also has a cool channel. I don't know if he's put out any videos too recently. I may have missed them if he has. And let's see. I think that covers everybody who's here at the moment. But we really appreciate everybody. I know sometimes we kind of don't get a chance to address the comments, but we're always, those of us who are not busy talking are always looking at the comments and sharing them. Yeah. So let's start with Mr. Earl Grey. How about showing us something you've read this week?
Yeah, something totally nostalgic. As you can see here, I've never thought that I will reread this book here again, Sophie by Yiddihem. But
what country does that originate from? I'm not familiar with it. Is it French
Belgium or France? Belgium? Yeah, Belgium or France. It's actually Belgium. I'm not so sure. The publisher is Belgian, but I'm not so sure about Yiddihem, which is such a shame. Because it was a group of French and Belgian cartoonists who worked with each other and who were befriended with each other. This is the one who wrote the stuff here. So, and yeah. The story here is called Qui fait peur à Zoé,
who's afraid of Zoe?
Who frightens Zoe. And Zoe is not the girl, but the car. And the thing with this story here, which makes it digestible for little boys like I was back in the day, is that it's not so much about this very clever and intelligent girl, but about cars. And Yiddihem is very famous for his way of drawing the cars. Belgium. Okay. So, and what happens here in the story is that there's a virus around who is, or actually these are termites, as it turns out to be, termites that don't eat wood but metal. And now the whole story is about how this city dissolves into dust, and the car crashes are really fascinating.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, and the story
I love
is
that style of sound effect from those old French comics.
Yeah. And it's really straightforward. It's simple as it can be, and it's sometimes pretty silly as it can be, and but nothing earth-shattering happens actually, and despite of all the cars going kaput. But here we have our two heroes, which is totally fine because Zoe, the car, is driving on her own intelligence. She's an intelligent car. And yeah, and so on. And we have a crazy professor who is the reason for all this, and he created these termites who eat metal. Yeah. So nothing more to say about it. I guess it's just really, and it's a collected edition, so there are more stories around, but I don't think that it's so interesting for you, but I really have a good time with these books.
Do you think the stories, do you think the stories in this kind of thing are similar to Carl Barks type of stories?
No.
Because it almost sounded to me when you were describing it like a gyro gear loose story where he's created.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But the stories here are more settled in our reality. The backgrounds are pretty realistically drawn, as you may have seen. Not only the cars, but everything around it. Let's see. Here, for instance. Yeah, all the tech stuff and all that. just this is a certain style in European comics, and this, the Franco-Belgian funny style.
Right.
Spirou belongs into that group of comics, and with the Masopilami and André Franquin and stuff like that. I'm really actually reading a lot of the stuff here because I always thought I wouldn't enjoy it as a grown-up man, but it's really entertaining, and it's the simple kind of stuff that I can read after the day before sleeping or something like this. It's an easy read, easy and fun read. And the difference to Karl Barks is, I guess there's more to it, even though the most obvious difference is that Duckburg is a town with animals, basically. And these are humans, and he has his 10 pages, and these are, and sometimes longer runs, of course, but yeah, there are lots of differences. Yeah.
I'll just interrupt before we go on to the next one. I went over to Bueller's house yesterday, which is like a TV set, and sat in for Bob on his morning coffee show. So we did that yesterday, and I guess he's just finished editing it, and it will come out Monday morning. So if you want to see me pretending to be Bob, Bullseye Bob on the Bueller show, there you go. We talked about Substack for a long time, and we graded a mystery box. So that was kind of fun. And there's a movement going on to have a face reveal and voice reveal of AFPC.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's coming, but I hope so. Hey, 1904. So let's move on. Terrence, are you okay with showing us something?
No.
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Everything's working out. I'll start with this one that I'm halfway through. So as is always the way with here in town, there's always some kind of posts on Facebook, the Winnipeg Comic Addicts Facebook group. So I got a couple of things from one of the guys, and one of them is Fafford and the Grey Mouser collected edition from Howard Chaykin, Mike Mignola, and Al Williamson. I'm about halfway through it. I wasn't familiar with this writer, Fritz Leiber, I guess his name is.
Fritz Leiber. He was famous at one point, but is kind of forgotten now.
Yeah. And it seems to me they do there's an introduction by Howard Chaykin, and then there's a little write-up by Mike Mignola at the end, and they both kind of say the same thing, that, you know, once we discovered kind of fantasy, Robert E. Howard, Michael Moorcock, and then they both moved on to Fritz and his work. And this is such a good book so far. Cool. It's really, really great. So it's just broken up into chapters. It came out in kind of these square-bound editions from Epic. I'd only ever found one. There was 4 of these, so they finally got collected by.
I never knew about these. I'm very excited.
Yeah, and they're really, really great stories. They just kind of, you know, they're both kind of thieves, and they just kind of become instant friends. The first story takes place in this town called Lankmar, and everything that goes on there. I don't want to spoil too much of it because there is some pretty dramatic stuff that happens within the first story. So we just kind of get introduced to them and their significant others, and kind of a little bit of what their world is. Some of the really fun stuff was when they kind of break into this den of thieves to seek revenge for past crimes. There's this one sorcerer character, which is great, and all of the kind of made up magical spells is a lot of fun. The art is beautiful. You know, it's Mignola stuff, so he's not quite there. I can't remember the timeline on this. I believe this was before his Hellboy stuff, so still early-ish in his career. Let's look at the...
If it's Epic, I would assume it was sometime in the 80s?
Right. So it talks about... Published by Dark Horse in 1990, 2006. It says 1995. It doesn't say when the Dark Horse ones were originally released, unfortunately.
Oh, it's Dark Horse. Sorry, I thought it was Epic.
I mean, sorry. No, you were right. Sorry, the Epic ones. Apologies. And then the story that I just read recently, there's all this stuff too when they kind of go to battle with this sorcerer in these kind of big cobwebs and everything. It's just really, really entertaining. Very riveting stories. The last one that I read here yesterday afternoon was, I guess, one of his more famous stories, because I think both of them mention this story, called The Howling Tower. As they're out on the landscape, they can hear these wolves, and there's stories about these wolves stealing people away in the middle of the night. They're these ghosts that come and take people away. So of course, one by one, they start to disappear, and the Grey Mouser character finds this tower that he goes in, and finds his friend and their guide tied up, and they're drugged. They're passed out. They're not dead, but they're dying. And again, we get kind of another sorcerer type comes into the place and talks to him about what's happening, where this legend has come from. It's these spirits of these wolves. So he brings people in and drugs them, because the spirits aren't satisfied. So when he drugs people, they go into this ghostly dimension to get devoured by these wolves and fight for their lives. So the Grey Mouser takes this potion and joins his friend Fafford in this ghost realm to fight some wolves. And it's these great kind of adventure stories. One of the other things we've talked about before, which is always a real treat, is when you get a little snapshot of a map here, so you get to kind of see where it is that they're going and where they've been. Yeah, it's a very, very good book so far. I'm really, really digging it. At the end of this, they also do a short story called The Snow Woman. They transcribe a short story. Maybe it was his first story. Following as a preview of book 1 in the original Lankmar series. Yeah, so we get the very first story by Fritz Lieber. Highly recommended so far. I mean, I'll report back, but I can't imagine it's going to get worse. They've been just really, really good stories. Very short and sweet. Very entertaining.
Cool. Yeah, I read a lot of Fritz Leiber, Fafford and Grey Mouser stories when I was a kid. After I used up all the Conan, I went to Fritz Leiber, and he was obviously a bit more sophisticated and less about the violence and the sex, I think, and more humor, I think, and exotic stuff.
Yeah. And just the dialogue and the way they talk to each other, there is definitely like this different quality to the text and stuff. You know, it's not just grunt, groan, let's go kill somebody. Just their interactions with each other are very entertaining, and building that bond that they have been just through these first 3 stories. Really, really great.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think Fritz Leiber was, I might be mistaken, but I think he was trained as a Shakespearean actor before he went into writing science fiction. And the other interesting tidbit is Howard Chaykin did a version of those characters in a DC comic called Swords and Sorcery back in the 70s. It didn't last very long.
I was also going to mention Iron Wolf as well, too, because it seemed to be similarities there, too, with kind of, you know, this is more sci-fi as well. Like outer space kind of science fiction, but there's still this kind of swashbuckling kind of thing to it. And I guess there was a series after this that Mignola worked on as well, too, Iron Wolf. When he was working on the Fafford and Grey Mouser stuff, he was also working with Chaykin on Iron Wolf stories, too, so there seems to be, and also I think like with a guy like Chaykin, there does seem to be a similar thread sometimes within the stuff that he explores, you know, even like Cody Starbuck, that sort of thing. There seems to be that type of storytelling in a lot of his comics. Not all of them, obviously, but you know, in a chunk.
Until more recent comics, which are much weirder.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, Rasa, I think you're up.
Oh, it's my turn. So, due to good fortune for me having Terrence and sending me this comic, I can finally read this #1, which is appreciated this cover a lot because of Conan #1 homage to it. Another thing what great they do in here is they give you a little bit story of Bargains Smith and why they chose it and blah 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 and stuff like that, which I really enjoyed. So I'm not going to talk much into it. I guess lots of people has read this, I think, and in the comments and stuff like that. But I just want to mention I left the art, and of course the favorite character of mine is still the X because of his witty lines. Like, get that sweet fucking nectar of the life, Owen, and stuff like that. So it's just a little bit gory, definitely, because it's just chomping and cutting and stuff like that. Another thing, I don't know, maybe you can tell me, but they will be more, because the way the origin story happened in here for our barbarian, they didn't really mention how the axe became what it is. I mean, I know those witches made like a kind of thing. They didn't have given him a choice, like do this for us or this stuff. And he had an axe, but we didn't really show the axe actually becoming what it is now in the future afterwards. But I don't know. You guys found out the same thing, or is it mentioned in the following issues? Because I know there's more like 3 now issues came out.
2 issues so far.
Okay.
I feel like somewhere they might be teasing that they'll give the axe's origin later on. I'm not sure.
Okay. And anyway, so it's absolutely it's fun. It's really fun. It's like exactly what you expect from that kind of storyline, especially when it comes to barbarian. And it's great we're getting that. And the artist and the coloring I really enjoy thoroughly. It's actually kind of remind me of some other artists, especially in these scenes here, but maybe it's just because everybody's kind of, like similar after reading comic books or new comic books in a while. Seems to be lots of people have a kind of like kind of a style of their own, but with some flair of what you know. And and the funny, I really liked that when the axe realized that he's not only talking to the barbarian, she actually can hear him. It's like, finally, is somebody else gonna hear me, not that douchebag or like that imbecile, as they call him. I think what he called, and it's funny. It's just, it has good lines in here. I definitely want more. I want to, of course, explore the world, and I did order number 2 issue, which is going to come at the end of this month for me. So I'm definitely going to give you my thoughts on that. But generally, I like the way they started, how this guy introduced him, or kind of us introduced to him, to the character itself. I think it's quite interesting in the way they did. And then it's like, I don't want to do this shit, but I've been forced to be good, kind of thing. Like he liked just to have sex and fight and have sex, and that's his freedom. like not just doing like just because somebody says help and that's it. Doesn't have a choice of basically how to deal with like he can't say no. Somebody says help, and he has to go run towards them and really help them. So because that's what the deal he made with the those 3 witches, like so typical kind of like it's a good mesh of characters so far. So let's see how it goes with the issue 2 for sure. What about his name? Everybody's like Owen. Like, is it Owen? It's like the religious name. Yeah, Owen. Yeah.
It seems an odd name for a barbarian. To be honest.
Yeah, very much so. It's not like of that era as well name. Like
right.
you wouldn't call barbarian Owen. It's like,
I wonder if that's some kind of in-joke, like someone has a friend named Owen and they name the barbarian after.
Because they kind of like the way they pronounce it in this name in this comic book as well, like kind of give him shit for it. It's like, I even lost the name, like nobody's calling me by name anymore. They're calling barbarian or barbaric or barbarian. Anyway, so yeah, it's very entertaining as far. Like, I'm glad I read it. Of course, I'm glad I finally managed to do so because lots of people are talking about it, and yes, definitely one of the good ones on the shelves to find. So thank you, Terrence, once again.
Can you tell us the creators? That was one of the questions here from AFPC.
I can show you.
Yeah, so Michael Morecki, that's a familiar name. And the artist I'd never heard of before, Nathan Gooden. Yeah. Also extremely good colors by another colorist I hadn't heard of before.
Addison Duke.
Addison Duke.
Yeah. So World Comics production.
As people are mentioning here that it's only scheduled to be 3 issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw in previews there's a hardback scheduled of those 3 issues.
Yeah.
So hopefully there'll be more, because it feels like 3 issues is not nearly enough.
No, just like this one is, it's such a, like, there's a smidget of information you gain here. You got lots of action. You kind of got the a little bit of origin of him, saying like that's what he had no choice. No, he was this mercenary guy on a ship, and there's these 3 witches came into it, stabbed him. It's like, look, you die, go to hell, or you become like do whatever we ask you to do. So, and then they give him this axe, and this axe is basically what really interesting, what would drive the story forward, because it can be kind of tiring because of kind of similarities, or you're breaking the fourth wall because you're talking to someone in like imaginary thing, and everybody's commenting on that, and you complete like basically having conversation with it. So it can be tiring, like, because we're used to for Deadpools and all that kind of stuff. So I would be interesting to know how they're gonna go forward with the storyline, and how, I really would like to know the origin of it, because Axe just not becomes like the big mouth and just like, gets drunk with blood and it just hicks all the time, like hiccups all the time, like after a couple of bloods, like, oh yeah, that's great. I was like, you're full of, like, you're drunk of your blood and you still want to go for it. Yes, let's just kill everybody, like, just go for it, kind of thing, is it? So yeah, it's, in that sense, it's very entertaining, but let's see how it's gonna go forward with them. So
it seems like it's very popular, so hopefully there'll be many more issues. Of course, sometimes I'll think something's really popular because everyone on YouTube's talking about it, and then you see the sales figures in it. There's no connection. But hopefully it is popular. Well, I also have a sword and sorcery book to share with you.
There you go. We're going into
my screen share again. It is a very old one. It goes back to the 1970s, 1975. I just read the first issue. I just got all 4 issues of Stalker, and I just read the first issue this morning. It is drawn by Steve Ditko with inks by Wally Wood, which I think is kind of unusual to see the 2 of them paired together. And it's written by Paul Levitz. And I tried looking online because I was trying to figure out, did Steve Ditko actually create this character, or did Paul Levitz? And no one, I thought I had read a long time ago that Ditko really created this character. But in the back matter, Paul Levitz acts like there's a little write-up from Paul Levitz. He acts like they asked me to make up a sword and sorcery character, so I went and wrote 2 drafts, and then we were done. But so it's very fascinating to see Wally Wood inking Ditko.
And
it looks a little more like Wally Wood than Ditko, which I guess is not surprising. But there are all these moments that have a Ditko feel to it, and the movement of the characters is much more Ditko-esque, I would say. And the main plot is this guy was a street urchin and was made a slave by this queen. And so when he escaped his slavery, he went to a temple of a demon god of war. And the demon god of war gave him all these super skills as a warrior and took his soul. So he literally has no soul in his body anymore. And the effect of that is that he has no feelings. So he's taking his revenge on the queen, but so far he's not enjoying it because he doesn't have feelings anymore. It's kind of, with these old-fashioned artists like Steve Ditko and Wally Wood drawing it, it kind of harkens back a little bit to the, well, as Earl Grey once said about Prince Valiant, the sort of kitschy medieval world. But on the other hand, it has the taste of like these Michael Moorcock stories with the character without a soul and this kind of the harsh reality of the cruelty of this sword and sorcery world. So I'm eager to read the next issue. I think he's going off to search for someone some high priestess of this demon who might be able to tell him how he thought, even though he lost his soul, that he would still, have human feelings and enjoy getting his revenge. But and I don't know if they managed to have a complete story in their 4 issues. This is definitely to be continued at the end of this first issue.
Yeah.
So, there's a picture of Paul Levitz back then. I did the math, and he must have been 19 when he wrote this. So all he says is, "Oh yes, about Stalker. That started one afternoon when Joe Orlando told me we needed another magazine. Go create one." So I did, and 2 drafts later, it turned into what you've just read. But I could have sworn I heard that Steve Ditko came up with this character, and they just brought this young, untried scripter in to fill it to flesh it out. I might have even heard Paul Levitz say that in the podcast with Scott Edelman. I'm not sure. Not sure if I'm remembering right. So anyway, there's a lot of dicey stuff in old comics, right, about who actually made things up. But I tend to believe that Steve Ditko has a lot of the creativity going on there.
The queen really looks like Disney queen.
She does. She looks like a Disney queen, especially
Bollywood like.
Yeah, the Bollywood inking on her face. Let me find it.
They all look so dreamy, and those beautiful eyes and perfect figure, like.
And the demon god looks very Steve Ditko-esque, I think, like something out of Doctor Strange or something.
Yeah.
But it's weird because it looks so Disney-ish, as you say, and then it's really kind of this twisted, uncomfortable story that's only about revenge and not being able to enjoy your revenge because you have no soul.
I see.
So anyway, that was cool, and I think that came out around the same time that Howard Chaykin was doing that first adaptation of Fafhrd and the Grey Monster, because Conan was so big at that time. DC was trying to catch up with it, and then I think this was one of those comics that got caught up in the DC implosion, where DC, in their attempt to compete with Marvel, expanded too quickly, and then everything kind of collapsed back in on itself.
Never learn their lesson, do they?
They never learn. And we never learn either. We keep buying the comics.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you have such a great team, I mean, I didn't even hear before, but it was great to, even looking at it, but it's still, some looks really Bollywood inside.
Very Bollywood, yeah.
Yeah.
Bollywood, I think later on he just became an inker because he could make it a Bollywood comic as the inker, not have to do the initial work of penciling. So back around to Mr. Gray.
Yeah. I think I have
duck beer.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
I have a European theme going on today, European comics for the most part,
nice.
And to continue the theme of cars and women, female characters.
Is that a very European thing?
Maybe, yeah. Interestingly, I'm actually right now totally a car hater. I hate what cars are doing with our towns, with our cities, and I really think that individual transport should be something of the past. But at the same time, I do like the old cars, old timers, and how they look and so on. Right. Anyhow, these comics are a good way to indulge in old cars. This is written by one Noël Hummels. So we are in the Netherlands now, from Belgium to the Netherlands.
I'm traveling.
And that's the guy who wrote it, Noël Hummels. And this behind here is Eric Heuvel. And Eric Heuvel is most famous for January Jones. It's modern Ligne Claire adventure. The covers are a bit, sexy or most, but inside she's a pretty okay character and very interesting, and not just reduced to her appearance, however. And she's called, our main hero here is called Berlinetta, barely, after a car. So her father was such a car fetishist that he had to name his daughter after a car. So, and she always felt that her father was more in love with his cars than with her. So this gesture at his grave is pretty significant how she feels about him. But later on, she learns that there was, he had more feelings for his daughter and so on. But she inherits his car collection, and the whole story is just a vehicle of these two dudes here. There's again this one here, the writer. He writes for a Dutch magazine for cars magazine. So he's a car freak himself, and he wanted just a story with as many cars as possible, as different cars, as recognizable cars, and so on. And Eric Heuvel did this with his very modernized Ligne Claire style, which I really like. I'm not so sure about the colors, actually. Pretty unusual, but maybe on some pages a bit very, that Speed Racer, maybe. On some pages, it's maybe too candy colored. I don't know. There are 3 stories in this volume here. 2 of them are pretty good. Adventure stories about car smuggling, and the last one is about Adolf Hitler's car, Mercedes. I don't know if this should be always the topic, but they both make a pretty good story about it, about this car here. She founds this Mercedes, K770, which was the car of Adolf Hitler, and now she has this car in her collection, and it's a problem, but for her, because now she has to think that her grandfather was actually a collaborator with the Nazis, and the whole thing is made complicated because a newspaper wants her family to be the bad guys. She has not inherited the car park, but this newspaper as well. So, and she doesn't like this newspaper because it's some kind of, I don't know, the Sunday in England, or the Die Bild-Zeitung in Germany would be bad newspapers with huge letters on the first page and this kind of thing. And she wants to stop it and don't go there anymore and don't invest money in this. So the reporter here, the chief reporter, has this one here, very nice looking guy. He has an interest for her being badmouthed as having this evil car in her collection. So, but now he collaborates with some new Nazis in the Netherlands, and however, pretty complicated story, but pretty interesting. And and finally succeeding in telling us a modern adventure story with some political background that is not as lazy as it first sounded, and maybe through my words especially. In the middle, there's a story where there is some kind of car rally with Berlusconi and some other political leaders of Europe, the biggest assholes you can think of. And this story in the middle just wanted too much in a few pages, and but the rest is pretty okay. And even though I would recommend, if you never have read something by Eric Heuvel, go for January Jones. It's available in many languages, maybe not in English. But Yeah, but I don't know. I did a video, I think. Maybe there is.
I think you did a video on there.
Yeah, and maybe,
trying to remember.
Yeah, it's available in many languages, really. But yeah, but somehow
so the one you showed us today, you read in German or?
Sorry. Yeah, Cabot, and it's published in German by Cult Comics. But there's a Dutch version and a French version for sure of this book here.
And what's the vintage of that? Is that from the 80s?
I guess the early 2000s.
I'm trying to think of when Berlusconi was a name.
Yeah. We tend to forget these names, fortunately, pretty soon.
They come and they go.
Yeah.
Well, it still appears in the newspaper if you just will look carefully.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You'll see his face somewhere.
Oh, he's still around. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's still around, and he's still the greatest Latin lover around. I don't know.
Yeah, always have a beautiful female next to him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a disgrace to our gender, really. But 2014.
Amongst others. 2004, so fairly recent stuff.
Yeah.
And aimed, I assume, at a relatively mature readership, unlike the other two you showed.
Yeah. Car fans, car fanatics for sure. But it was serialized in the Dutch version of Spirou. We have some monthly or weekly magazines in Europe. A lot of them are gone in the meantime, but there were at least Spirou, Tintin, Eppo in Germany, Zack, and others, and the Dutch Eppo, and they all tried the similar model that is maybe a bit similar to the Japanese stuff, where you, as I figure, I had never seen such a magazine, but with different stories in one magazine.
Right,
so and you get this weekly, and so yeah.
A lot of I've seen both the European and the Japanese ones. They are similar. A lot of little snippets of a serialized story.
Maybe a bit like heavy metal.
A bit like heavy metal.
Yeah, like
but usually in a smaller size, right?
So it's not like anthology.
Japanese.
No, usually not actually in a smaller size.
Oh, okay.
Albums. I mean, I don't know. This Tintin seems to be a bit smaller.
I may be misremembering. I haven't seen the European ones since I lived in Switzerland.
Magazine size. These ones that I got, they're magazine size.
Yeah. So Love and Rocket size, maybe. So not even totally European album. Okay, but in contrast to heavy metal, I found at least in the new heavy metal, the fractions of the stories are too small. Just 4 or 5 pages or so, and as far as I remember, the parts in the old Zack magazine, at least in Germany, they were longer parts. So you got a good chunk of story with each magazine. But for the most part, they're gone, and these publishers sell their comics through albums over here.
Albums.
I don't know. Maybe Spirou is still around. I don't know.
Well, ComicKkrakk.
It's making it more difficult for us to pronounce his name.
But it makes him much more mysterious and scary.
Yeah, it has a bit of a Lovecraftian vibe.
Yes.
So
kind of Lovecraftian and Galactus and other things.
Oh, he's going to show off again.
So I'll do this one like this.
Okay, let's get a good look. Let's get a good look at the monster.
And Doctor Strange. Speaking of, on my Mike Mignola kick, I read this one this week, and there you go, my cousin there on the back of this one.
There you go.
Long lost cousin.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this. Sorry, it's a horrible idea.
I can't see.
It was I really, really enjoyed this one. I was surprised how much I liked it. one of the things, so we get this, recently I did a new Doctor Strange kind of video. I'd done one like 8 years ago, looking at some Doctor Strange stuff. And this Genghis character was in the run that I was looking at, where he was trying to find eternity, and Genghis knew about the aged Genghis knew where eternity was. So he comes back into this, and it turns out that he's the one who put Victor Von Doom on the path to the Ancient One, where Doom learned a bunch of magic before he became Dr. Doom. He has this, there's this kind of gathering of these sorcerers where they compete with one another to see who's going to be the Sorcerer Supreme. I think it's once every 100 years they do that. So it kind of, and I thought maybe that was going to be the meat of the story. And it turns out that was just the beginning chunk, just kind of the quick intro to get you used to their relationship and what all these sorcerers think of each other. Of course, Doctor Strange wins everything. And yeah, it does look like Rammelsy, absolutely. The Doctor Strange wins the battle. And part of it is because Dr. Doom was had such a hand in it, he has to grant. Dr. Doom basically gets a wish granted to some degree, where Dr. Strange has to train him in some way. All that Dr. Doom wants him to do is travel with him to hell to save his mother's soul. His mother was trapped by is it Morbius or is it Mobius? It's Morbius, right? Morbius,
yeah,
that's right. So Morbius. So they kind of pair up, and he goes to Latveria, where he's from, and he shows. It's just an interesting take on the Doctor Doom character. I'm not super familiar with the character. Obviously, I know a little bit about him, but it really shows the people in Latveria and how much they love him and how much they kind of cherish his kind of iron fist to some degree. It was a really, really great story. I really enjoyed it. There's absolutely shades of Mignola here, but there's even shades of, especially in this woman's face, there's shades of Ted McKeever as well too, which I really loved. But it's 1989, I think. Yeah, 1989. So it's still early-ish. But there's absolute tastes of Mignola here in his kind of Gothic type of style. Yeah, I mean, not much more to say about it other than I really, really dug it. Stuff like this with all the black on that page. Yeah, really nice stuff. And I like this format as well. I'll just get to, there we go. There's Morbius as they're in hell and they just battle, they just fight for his mother's soul. And when she finds out.
Oh, did you mean Mephisto?
Mephisto.
I might mean Mephisto. Yeah, sorry.
This is hell.
Some of these characters. That's why you're all here for me. So when it looks like Dr. Doom sacrifices Doctor Strange in order to get his mother's soul back, and once she finds that out, she kind of turns on him and it decides that she's going to stay with Mephisto and stay down in hell because no son of mine would ever, turn his back on somebody, etc., etc. So it's really great. And I think that what is it that. Is it an Aftershock book that kind of comes in this graphic novel type of size? I've seen a couple of talk about it. God Killer, is that what it's called?
I've got it right here. God of Tremors.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really nice format. You get kind of a mini graphic novel in a nice album size.
Exactly, and it seems to be that format, like this classic style here. I've got a number of stuff, and Eclipse did the same thing. But I really like this version. It's you feel like you're getting a really nice, thick book out of your money, however much this cost me. I guess when it came out, it was $10 American when it first came out. So really, really great. I really dug it.
If you want to know more, one of the runs of Doom, find out about how the character Brubaker has wrote for Marvel about Doom. So his run is great. It's a great introduction from the beginning to the end, how he became what he is, about his mother's problem, like, you know, like she perished and died, you know, way before, you know, and he struggles with being who he is and how he looks and all that stuff, because, you know, like, but it's really great. I don't remember who was artist, but I know for sure it was Brubaker, and you know, if you like Brubaker writing, it's actually really nice to read about the character, so you can find out really good. I think it's like, I don't know how it was called, but it was specializedly like completely for just Doom and him. I read in graphic novel format from library. Remember, I think it was a couple of books. It's called Book 1, Book 2, or something like that. But it's Brubaker and Doom. I guess if you type those together, I think you can find out. It's very well written.
Yeah.
Very well written.
Yeah, that makes me realize maybe when Marvel and other American publishers first thought of doing graphic novels, their ideal was the European album, because they put out a lot of that kind of stuff in the 80s, and then they stopped. And then now they just do, you know, collections of comic books. But anyway, so it's cool to be reminded of that one, Terrence. It's one to look for. Although apparently
it's been here in
expensive.
My collection for a while, and it's just one of those things that I just always mean to get around to, and I just never do, right? So
this is that comic book I'm talking about.
The Books of Doom. Is it like a 4-issue miniseries or something?
Six issues. Cool. Raimondi is the artist, I presume, and Farmers and Ribber, and so Brubaker is the one. It's really good to find out if you want, as I say, more about Doom. It's really got like an origin tale of the Doom. Brubaker is
maybe bringing together all the different lore that has built up over time.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because I remember I started interested in like in those reading and library. It's like, what is this? And Brubaker is one of the names. I enjoyed it because I knew what he was doing for DC, because I read a couple of Batman's books in that time when I was still kind of like new in comic reading, and I discovered there's Doom, and I was never familiar with Doom, but I was fascinated to see how, you know, he became, and then really good. It's really kind of, you find out a little bit more about Psyche and how he thinks in there, because Brubaker is kind of like tries to show that to you about the character. So yeah, very good.
So I also do not know who Ramel Z is. Apparently I'm missing out on something. Terrence, you know?
Hip-hop graffiti guy, and then he went and started doing music, and his whole thing was making these costumes out of junk and trash. And if you look at, there's stuff about him on YouTube. He was amazing. He used he was a visual artist for sure, but his hip-hop stuff, he kind of transitioned to using kind of heavy metal samples and things too. So his stuff had a bit of a harder edge, but his visual style, and he would go out in these kind of costumes that he made for himself and was sort of always in character. He had a bunch of different characters. He created his own universe, and the Ramel Z was kind of the head kind of god, but there was other godheads in this universe, and he had different costumes. Very, very cool visually. That it really reminds me of that as I was making it. Yeah.
I'll have to look into that.
The New York, he's passed away now, but he was a New York guy, I believe.
So we are back to Rasa.
Me. So I'm gonna continue reading this serial number 5. And this was a little bit of a tearjerker because of he involves animals, in particular dogs, and if you're not aware, I don't really like reading comic books with animals much, especially if that contains a bit more sadness to it. I don't know, when animals get hurt, I feel really I don't know, sad, and I feel like it spoils all my day. Instead. Yeah. Well, you know, in not that sense, but yeah, okay. By the way, and Mr. Terry Moore, of course, is very capable of showing expressions, and that's why I really do enjoy. But anyway, we started this quote. So what it usually does. So one day, men will look back and say, gave birth to 20th century. Jack the Ripper. I guess this is quote of Jack the Ripper. That's how we start the story. Anyway, we continue with our serial killer, which is this lady here having a margarita. Or wait, what is it? Martini. Anyway, and she's sitting in the bar. I guess she's looking for her next victim. And then there's this dude approach her, and we're having this conversation. And of course, she's absolutely hating everything he has to say about. And then we jump straight away into Zoe's action, where she's basically murdering this dude who basically kidnaps kids and does really bad things to the kids. And then after she's pursuing this guy and finished the job, she goes back into this car, I mean Zoe in here, and then she sees these two little eyes, and she's like, uh-oh, what is that? And then she sees this, not sure, it's portraying Pitbull, I guess, but I think Pitbulls are really underrated as a dog breed anyway. So we have these crazy things, and she's saying, stop it, you're breaking my arm, I will have to hurt you, just stop it. And they're having this fight scene. I mean, and then of course Terry Moore has to go an extra notch, because so the dog, and he has this panels in here, and then she's basically really proper stabs the dog quite a lot of time, and the dog collapses on her. But Terry Moore didn't have enough for you to see that scene. Oh, everything is just like crying, I'm sorry, apologizes. And guess what? She actually finds a puppy baby. And I was like, oh my bloody hell, Terry Moore, why are you doing this? You know, and then the scene here where the dog is dying, and she's trying to get that little baby pup milk from the mother. And they have this like horrible line, says, I'm so sorry, I'll protect him, you'll be there, and the dog dies. And I was like, oh shit, Terry Moore. And yeah, it's basically mainly of this kind of scene we see at the end of the day, and this kind of heartfelt story, end of the story, even though the guy just before, she just killed without no hesitation. But this scene just pulled a couple of heartstrings for me, especially. But also the lady who was talking, she was looking for a guy to murder. She just disposes of him. So they walk into this hotel. They were in the hotel bar, by the way. And she, just because she didn't like what he was saying while she was apparently tying his shoes, she just pulled him across, and then he flopped on the ground. And she doesn't have anything to feel sorry about. So yeah, that's what you get from Terry Moore's serial comic. So quite a few tearjerker moments, and of course some sinister way of dealing with a murder. No wonder it's called serial, and it's getting stronger, I think, because of that. What he's so strong about, the emotionals, the way he's portraying the anger in Zoe's face, for example. Wait, there you go. In here, you know, this kind of thing, how she's just like absolutely slashed the shit out of the guy because she feels absolutely disgusted by him. And then this woman having a comment, and this guy's expression looking, oh my God, you know, like they having talking about, like, this guy was complaining about his life, that he left this woman and they got kids, and because of the kids and the responsibility, he left her. So because he was afraid of it, and she just didn't like the way what he was saying, and then pretended to help him to go to his room, and then just dropped him from the balcony in the hotel just because. Anyway, so there's two sides of the comic book. It's actually quite, in a way, interesting how he managed to smash together two stories together, and then just make it one a little bit. Say, as I say, I felt really sorry for that for the dog more than I felt sorry for those two guys who like you said earlier, which is kind of like, yeah, it is Terry Moore. It's absolutely fantastic. You always get. This is basically his way of dealing with comic books. You're always going to give you a quote of the day of the comic book, and you're only going to get black and white art. But he excels in conversations. He excels in emotions portrayal. All the female characters kind of look similar in one way, because I guess it's just, you know, like some artists just can't And like he draws quite, especially a lot of male characters with different facial features, but these females kind of look in a way similar. But I don't mind it. I mean, he excels in the emotions. That's what you care, especially when they having like really horrible conversation, and you actually see that in the face without actually your words needs to say it. So it's really a strong point of his. But yeah, really good. Absolutely. It's like I always read it right at the last because I know what I'm gonna get. I never get disappointed with what I do. It's quick read sometimes, but this kind of things when you get it in a comic book is what sells it for me. You know, like yes, it's horrible to read about that kind of stuff, but you know, you have like it builds the story forward and it's getting stronger. And I think it is better to read it in graphic novel, his work. But for me, I just want that snippet every month, just to have a feel of whatever he's going to come up with. And I like to be able to read freely and look at his art freely, so in black and white in comic format. Yeah, my choice. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, yeah, it's hard to wait, but I'm waiting.
Yeah, it's everybody's choice. As long as if you can sample at least his work, it would be great for you to discover what he can actually do. But he's very good. His strong point is conversation. It's really down to earth. It's nothing overly complicated, but it's like almost everyday life in a way, but with a twisted point of like serial killers to having conversation in the bar, and you know where you end up. Yeah, so it's interesting.
Yeah. Do you think his art's gotten better since Strangers in Paradise? Because I kind of feel that way.
Yes, it is. It's it's more elaborate. I think he's much more stronger with the emotionals. I think he's very strong in that sense anyway. It was already in Strangers in Paradise. I think it's one of the beautiful work what he done. But I think now it's just it looks more like the guy is completely free on, you know, he doesn't have no like, oh, I have to erase lots of lines. He already knows what he's doing. And
he knows what he's like a master of his
yeah. And then if you like his stuff, you definitely would follow most of the things what he has done. And Strangers in Paradise is absolutely fantastic story. Even though my favorite is Rachel Rising, still to the point because it was the first things I read of his, but Strangers in Paradise is it's a really good soap in the comic book format, but with a lots of entertaining twists you don't expect to happen most of the time. So really good.
Well, I feel like if you're not in the mood for Strangers in Paradise, you still should try Rachel Rising.
It's different. You get, I think what he does really well is emotionally gets you invested in the characters. You start to get to know them really well. He gives every single character lots of time to develop. And I think that's why people saying, oh, it's better to read in graphic novel format because of that. Because it takes his time to develop the characters. He wants to, you know, like put, like he says, he talks about them like they're kids, you know, like so. He cares that much what he does.
I have always the bias with Strangers in Paradise that I guess it was Jaime and not Gilbert. I believe so. Jaime Hernandez conveyed the feeling that this is a pretty much a Love and Rockets rip-off in many ways.
Ooh,
so
wow.
and if you think of it, there are a lot of similarities between them, and maybe it's not justified. And Jaime
the line between inspiration and
he didn't whine about or something like that, but it was so. I guess his argumentation was, it's obvious, isn't it? So,
it's funny. So I read all Strangers in Paradise, and I just had some of a feel of Love and Rockets, and I do love Rockets a lot. What I've read so far, I do maybe think there would be similarities, but that's the thing. I have not explored the whole world of Love and Rockets to actually compare those two. But what I've seen in Strangers in Paradise is just the dynamic between people. If it's the same in Love and Rockets, that's even better. You know, like. It's fantastic to even because I always want to get into Love and Rockets, but I find it confusing to me of what way to go. Like we were talking earlier in the videos, previous like weeks, which tome I should go, why I should go that way, and it's a lot of production, but it doesn't seem it's a bit all over the place to be honest, especially because there's lots of printings as well.
I had this incredible help of Forciarelli, who sent me all the stuff and at first in the first place, he just asked me, can I help you to get this here? It's easier to get this in the States, and so I bought him before a book that he wanted and sent it him to the States, but it was just 1 or 2 books, the Nemesis of 2000 AD, the collected editions, and that he had the hots for these books, and I can understand it totally, even though the small format of the Nemesis. But however, so I asked him, do you really want to organize this for me? And so, but he never wanted money from me for it, and this was. I'm still a bit embarrassed, but very honored that it was a huge package, and now I have all these magazines and over there.
Oh, he sent you the magazines. Oh wow. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty great.
Sorry, my internet. Here it's not confusing. Here's volume 1, and here are the collected editions, continuing volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume. But of course, you're right. It's a total mess, publisher-wise.
There's lots of publishers
to change your format with each run. It's or it's not really a mess. It's a pretty it's a high floating artistic solution, but publish wise, if you want to make money, it's not a good idea. So.
Because there's I always find it like what confuses me the most is European is this way. If I watch, like, I do research and somebody's like from America showing me this print, I was like, okay, I can't find that one, so let me look in UK ones or European ones, and then it's just all over the place. And sometimes you just like, you want to just pick one up and read. And I did once. I picked it up, I read it, and I read Luba's story, and I really fantastically. But there was a lot of this where I was reading that story I was missing, and I knew it because they will keep on telling me every page I was turning, oh, this is like blah 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 story before. It's like, oh shit. So that was quite a. Anyway, it's just the way it goes sometimes, with some stories. But yeah, but I definitely will somehow try to. Start reading more of those Love and Rockets, because it's interesting what you just said about Strangers in Paradise, because I actually would like to know for myself after reading Strangers in Paradise and see how I feel about it. It would be entertaining to me after that. So
it'd be interesting to hear what Terry Moore says to that kind of accusation.
That's another thing. I listened to an interview with him, and I got the feeling that he is a very self-aware, self-promoting guy. He really knows what that he has some worth in this world. So maybe I was in a grumpy mood or something like this, but after listening, I haven't finished this interview because of that reason, because he was so self-assured that I thought, okay, I don't
I think you might be feeling like misunderstood in a way. I'm not trying to say anything different, but what I get from the guy is, in order for you to survive in this bloody nasty world of it comes comic books and actually completely producing your own stuff, your own publishing thing, you have to be that person who is, I am advertising. I am the one who's going to give you all the lines possible. You see, this is I've done this one. Well, that's why you want to read this one. This is how it goes. And he does it everywhere. Like, he advertises how you draw this one because he has to. Otherwise, he's making the buck for himself. Because even in Dynamite previews, you see his stuff right at the end of it. Nobody cares to look that way. Like there's right at the end of the, like all the mangas and all the stuff. That's where his stuff is advertised. So, I think you have to be like that.
That sounded way too harsh. I didn't mean it that way.
Okay. Look, it probably came up like that. It's you never know. But when somebody's very passionate about what he does or what they do in generally, I think
that's totally okay.
Yeah, I think it's.
But he was far away from saying, okay, this was the idea of that guy, and I just went on that idea.
Right. Well, yeah, he promotes a kind of humble brag kind of persona, which I think probably you have. He's pretty much the only self-published person left standing.
Yeah.
But I find him less abrasive than someone like Brian Michael Bendis, whose humble brags are so unhumble that it's unbearable.
Or Mark Millar.
Or Mark Millar, yeah.
Mark Millar will plaster stickers on your forehead before you understand exactly what Millar word is all about. It's just like, you know, like those card games where, guess what it is, and you will be like, you know me, you know how I write, and blah, 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 and look this Netflix TV series, how the works, and you're like, oh, for God's sake. He just doesn't stop bragging what he does, as well as the number one. But, you know, it works for him as well, so good for them.
Well, and it always depends the lens you look at things through, because I could squint at certain Jaime Hernandez work and say, boy, now I realize that looks a lot like a Lois Lane episode I read. Or, you know, obviously everyone's taking from something, but I haven't read Strangers in Paradise. So, anyway, I guess it's my turn, and I read another, you know, self-promoting rat fink. No, I have no idea. I know nothing about
Junji Ito.
Junji Ito.
Actually, I saw it in that video of yours this week, and I really hope that you will talk about it. So I'm really curious.
Did I show this in a video? I didn't even remember.
It's laid on your table.
You have good eyes.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I plowed through this. Plow is the wrong word. I skated through it. I skied through it. I couldn't stop reading it. It's shorter. I have now 3 Junji Ito novels, or graphic novels, and I've only finished this one.
Wow.
Which I just got. And I'm thinking half of why I get Junji Ito books that I have is because they're the nicest looking physical graphic novels I see. Because they're there. My comic book store gets them, and I just see them on the new graphic novel shelf, and I can't resist them. This one has these beautiful end papers, and I mean the cover itself is beautiful, and you probably can't tell, but just the texture of the paper and everything is wonderful. And then you slide it off, and there's the hardback inside. But then there is an illustration which I used for this week's thumbnail on the inside cover.
Lovely.
And this is a hardback with a list price of $20, which is very low. I mean, you can't even get a Marvel soft cover for $20. And then I got it for my my discount at my shop. So, but then with all this beauty, they accidentally printed it backwards. No. I actually did. I think the flaw of my reading it was I know I'm supposed to start over here, but my eye would go there first, and then I had to force myself back to here. And so sometimes I kind of spoiled it a little bit for myself. So this is an extremely dreamlike story about, how do you even say what it's about? About some kind of spiritual battle between good and evil, and magical threads or hairs that come out of volcanoes. Is there ever ash from volcano that looks like threads or hairs? I don't know. But so in this case, they're very literal. There are these golden threads that come out of this volcano, and if they hit you, you kind of get a certain vision, enlightenment, and there must be there's some kind of time travel involved. It's a very hard story to explain.
Oh look, it's Watchmen. The blue guy, shining guy.
Yeah. Well, no, there's not much. In actual fact, there's not much like Watchmen. In a weird way, it reminded me of David Boring, although it really has nothing to do with that. I think the reality meets dreamlike stuff. So in that sense, it also made me think a little bit of certain work by Charles Burns and Franz Kafka. And what I'm trying to figure out, why I found it so mesmerizing, because I would say that he is fantastic at these patterns. Am I showing this in the right order? I guess I am. at these textures and stuff. But he's kind of a what I would call a kind of pedestrian illustrator. But he's a master at the comic book form. And that's why it was a bit sad that my eye would sometimes skip to the wrong place. The pacing of the panels and kind of the buildup of effect from sort of the mundane world into the fantastical world is really incredible. Yeah, so it reads really fast, but it's not like some manga. I mean, I haven't read a lot of manga, but not like some where there's just a little bit of text per page. It's often a considerable amount of text on the page. So basically, this woman has some kind of spiritual experience through these hairs from volcanoes. And sorry, I guess I can't really multitask everything. And so we go, it's each chapter's almost a short story on its own of some sort of kind of weird events. So after this woman has this spiritual experience, a reporter comes into the story. He calls himself a no-name reporter. He does have a name, but I guess he's not a very successful reporter. And he kind of starts following this girl around and getting involved in some of her experiences and trying to unravel the mystery. And eventually he becomes kind of part of the mystery. And the most stunning for me episode, I'm sorry, I'm just really bad at describing all of this, but the most stunning for me episode is when he follows her to this village that is by some cliff sides where lots of people come to commit suicide. And then there's all these bugs there. Let me see if I can find the bugs. There's all these bugs there that like to throw themselves. I don't know if you can see the bug there. They like to throw themselves under people's feet and get squished. And they're described as having a lot more organs than a normal bug. And there's one of the squished bugs. And it looks like eventually that the squished bugs are the souls of the suicide people committing suicide over and over again and getting squished.
Jesus.
It's just really bizarre. All of this was so removed from reality that my normal squeamishness about horror was not an issue, really. It was so dreamlike. But it's still, I don't know. The way there's rhythms to his storytelling that I really like. So eventually she, like the Pied Piper, gets all these bugs to follow her. And then she jumps off the cliff and all the bugs follow her. Jesus. None of it really makes sense. I think this might have been marvelous to read in its serialized form, like if you got each of these chapters in a separate comic book. But so ultimately, though, at the very end, I felt like it was all just gobbledygook, but it was a really fun ride to get there. So I need to force myself to read some more Ito books. There's the scary picture.
What?
But it just didn't seem scary at that point. It felt like fiction, if you know what I mean. It felt like a story, a dream. He could even come back to this, I think. But he also has a lot of interesting ideas. Like one concept thrown out here is that God made the universe and the universe was beautiful. And then what's beauty with no one to view it? And that's when he created humans or people with souls or what have you, so that they could view the universe. So we exist to make art meaningful. And I thought that was really cool. I mean, obviously, from someone who is an artist, that could be their way of viewing the universe.
So God is the ultimate hype man, right? Hey, check out what I've done. He's the ultimate salesman.
Yeah, he's like Basquiat, the artist. He needs an audience.
So it doesn't feel like very scary like the other Junji Ito books are.
Well, so I don't have a context because I haven't.
It seems pretty scary to me.
Oh, okay.
I haven't read enough Junji Ito, and I think this is from he did this in 2019. I don't know if he's, leaning into the horror less than he used to, or what that evolution of his storytelling is.
I mean, there's some sort of type of horror for sure. I mean, people killing themselves, and then those crazy featured characters he actually portrays most of the time in these books, as far as I've seen what people are talking about. So, but just didn't feel the way maybe you described it, that it felt really like a horror story, more like a self-discovery, or maybe less so of that.
It seems to be more tamer than, for his standards, at least. I mean, what he has done is this incredible body horror stuff. That's
I've heard that mentioned, and there's not a lot of that in this.
People with holes in their bodies, and you can look inside, and stuff is oozing out of the body, and so on. And I'm
the horror here is more existential, like a dream where you're wondering about the meaning of life.
Lots of interesting ideas, as far as I've understood. So totally the opposite of Remina, the last book that I've read by Junji Ito, and
I have that one, but I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, this was a total disappointment for me. So I thought maybe stop Junji Ito for a while. He puts out books in an. Remina is a very early effort, I think.
Oh, okay.
So, and story-wise, I really thought this was a mess, but
You thought Remina was a mess, story-wise.
Yeah. But
maybe this is good for me because it's easing me into the horror without. I can work my way up to something.
You have to be careful.
Just don't read those ear stuff. Whatever people were showing to me, I've not read the spirals. I've never even looked at it. I mean, I browsed it through the bookstore. So it's like, because I was watching people talking about Ito, because I haven't sampled many Ito books because of their goreness, like what Earl Grey was describing about body parts and everything. You see, even in black and white, for me, it's maybe goreness is a bit too much to digest. And then what people about spirals, lots of people freaked out, it seems to be. So I looked through a couple of pages and I was like, no, I don't think I want to go that route for now, because
and the tricky thing is he draws you called it pedestrian. I don't know if that's the real word.
Well, what I mean is
talking about the words.
What I mean is it's good illustration, but it's not, compared to Charles Burns, it doesn't have a very distinct style. The style seems to come out when the texture stuff comes out, not in the way the figures look, and they're and if you compare to the kind of exciting American comic book artists that I'm often comparing things to, they do a lot more with the posing of the characters and such. So it just seemed more plain illustrative, like as the characters are talking to each other or, traveling about, that part seemed kind of standard until the weird stuff happens.
Okay, I understand.
I don't know, like these 2 pages, it just felt, it's there, it's fine, but it's not like, I don't open this and go, wow, I need more of this artist or something like that. But especially when you go to the icky parts, they're drawn sometimes really, really well, I feel. And here's an icky
seducingly
part, and that certainly is different.
Oh yeah, there you go.
And you want to check it out, and on the other hand, you just don't want to see it really in all detail.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think this question here about is horror hard to pull off in comics. I feel like in movies you can literally make people shout, ah! You can jump, things can jump out at you and whatnot. And comics have to be more of a, even though they're visual, they have to be more of a psychological horror in a way to really get to you.
I think the real horror,
they pull you into a situation and then it gets creepy or something.
I think in real horror,
that's kind of one of the things that he does really well, though. Like, there's this real kind of existential kind of horror element to it, and I think because of his style being within that world of manga, and I'm sure a lot of people do it. This is by no means a diss or anything, Damien. I think that's also part of what happens to people is they end up comparing that stuff to other stuff. And it's like in that world of manga and you see those kind of facial features in that style, I think it gives more impact to those horrific things because it's kind of, you know, you made a very good comparison there early, to be honest, with like the Daniel Clowes kind of, here's these characters where these things are happening, but they're not really these characters that are caricatures, you know what I mean? Where it's like, it's about a style. It's about kind of drawing you into this very simple, almost childlike existence, and then just hit you with this page turn of these really graphically horror. But with his books, the stuff that I've read, I find that it gives me this feeling in my chest. It's like this idea, you know, the infamous one for me is the people who are being pushed through mountains and they don't have a choice. Exactly. The idea that stuff is happening to you as a human being that you just don't have control over. It has this existential kind of dread to it for me. Even stuff like that, this idea that these spirits are manifesting themselves in these insects and then getting crushed again, so that, you know, that stuff is creepy in a different level. It's not like scary, it just has this real deep unease to some degree, you know. So
right. And I think that's what a good horror comic does. That the movies are better at the cheaper scare in a way. Not that movies are also good at other kinds of scares, but I think that's what the comics can't really do. They can gross you out, I guess, you know, like Red Room apparently is trying to do.
I mean, I think it's also, you need to think about when many horror books, if you want to bring a punch, I think your printing is very vital. Is where scene pick up when you're flipping the page is. You know, if you want to pick that real big punch of whatever, something to terrify somebody, if you don't realize in the page and then you twist it and you turn the page and suddenly there's this there, I think that would work really quite well. And I think I also feel like that kind of cartoonist, like kayfabe, those guys are really talking about the paneling and printing is really a vital thing for you to actually know which position of the page will be in the printing process, because a lot of comic books, like they in one page they're telling you what's happening, and another page you actually, because your eyes will glance no matter what you're going to do, no matter how distracting you, like, oh no, I'm not going to look at that page, you will still see it because whatever the punchline is, and which is absolutely miss in the comic book a lot of times, you know, like you have to have the turn page and then you know, like that kind of thing. It does really work for your entertainment part. I think it just drives the information in further more better. So yeah, nothing in horror would be even greater. I think, I mean, not always you can have control of that as well. You know, like you don't have that kind of like, you know, or I can control everything, whatever happens to my productions. Maybe like Red Room does have, because I think his stuff is to extreme levels from page to page. So you kind of like, in a way, you will start to get used to whatever. You know, like it's going to get worse. No matter how many times I'm going to flip the page, it's just going to get like, ugh. And I was like, I watched, I read that, like, a script, skimmed through that comic book for the first time. I haven't had enough guts to go for again, because there are some pages like, oof, there are some places like I don't want to go there, even think about it.
Yeah, I still haven't read an issue. Even the free comic book day I flipped through it. I still haven't read it, you know. Yeah.
Nah, I don't think I even probably gonna attempt to read it anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, for me, there's certain things I really don't want lingering in my brain, so I'm just I'm just avoiding Red Room personally because I'm sensitive. But what's the famous, everyone keeps referring to the people getting pushed through mountains. Which book pushes people through mountains?
Oh, I remember the book. I have to check. It's a collection of short stories.
So it's not Uzumaki, because people also mention that a lot.
Yeah, Uzumaki that's the first thing that I saw, but I saw the movie first, and then I found out that it was from this guy, like back in 2000-ish or whenever it was. We were living in Ontario. And there was a great video rental store that had a lot of Japanese stuff, and I got Uzumaki and was completely blown away by it because it was just such a different kind of horror movie. And then reading the comic, same thing, just a different kind of, like, what do you mean people are terrified of spirals? The hell are you talking about? Like, but it's just such an interesting premise because it's completely different than anything else, right? So there he goes. He's probably got it. No.
Maybe. I hope. Sorry. Damn it. No.
Yeah, art is great.
Wrong book. Sorry.
The Red Room.
But it's another good book by him.
Shiver.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Shiver. Yeah,
Okay.
collection of shorter stories, but yeah, but
anyway, I really enjoyed this, and it's going to plunge me into more Ito.
Oh, you have it, so you can just like
I have
pick
two
one.
other books to start reading right after this show.
You just don't do spirals.
if you want to read a good other horror manga by what's his name, Gutanabe, these Lovecraft adaptations, these are pretty good. Amongst all these Lovecraft comics, I think these are really the best of all efforts. I mean, Richard Korm also out of the way because he works in another league, but of the more recent ones, it's pretty precise and does very well. If you're interested in this Lovecraftian horror, I mean, for me, yeah, okay, then it's pretty.
I've actually been rereading a few Lovecraft stories in the past few
The Mountains of Madness. I found these. It's a 2-volume series. At least the German translation is. It's the strongest one of the Gutanabes so far.
Cool. Yeah, I think every time I read manga, I feel a little bit of resentment. Like I'm supposed to like manga better than American comics, so then I get defensive.
Yeah, it's me the same with the European stuff as well, because there's this flood of manga in our comic shop, and I feel for a lot of it is because they have the same format, they have this clear marketing strategy. And we have all these different formats and sizes and all this confusion going on. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Horror comic one is cover price for $4.99. Man, Jesus.
In our bookstores, the manga sections have grown to equal the size of kind of the graphic novel and comic sections. The amount that's out there just in all of the bookstores, not so much in the comic shops have some here, but not as much as the bookstores. I find the abundance of choices out there is crazy.
Yeah, I went to the bookstore just recently after some time, and I went to graphic novel section. They had one line of graphic novels and manga 5. I was like, what happened? Is that much things come out? It's like, I'm really out of sync with manga stuff. I mean, as I say, I do enjoy it, but like you, Sleepy, I have really, my eyes just goes the wrong way. It's like, and you go back again and you're like, it becomes a task. Should be a quick read.
I'm going like this.
And
like
they
this.
are. Yeah, it's a quick until your head just like, and you before you're like, oh, I got how to read it and it's finished, and you're like, oh shit, I took so long time just to get there and it's already done, kind of thing. So.
And then I'll start reading my American comics wrong.
Yeah, start flipping wrong side.
I think my real my personal issue with manga is the super stretched out stories, and Ito does not do that, so that eliminates that problem. Because I tried reading Death Note, and I got through 4 volumes. Well, I was reading it with Matt for the podcast, and it was an interesting story. But after a while, I was like, I'm not going to pay for more copies of this just to get this rest of this story. It's not enough of a story.
I find it always entertaining when, like, North Americans talking about Marvel and DC and stuff, talk about manga being long form stories. I always get a slight kick out of that.
Well, I don't like the overly stretched out American ones too, but most of the indie comics I'm reading don't have that problem.
But I miss those long stretch. I miss long stretch comic books, to be honest, serialized. Like the one comic book so far, the longest one in my pull list is the Deadly Class, which is issue 46. And that's the longest one I have in my pull list. I've not committed to anyone, or they committed myself to continue reading the same story, or like not same story, but like that, the same character story driven book for that long. I have not had comic book yet. Well, I guess it beats all of it. It's like 119, and I'm continually doing that. Which is the only.
I'm not really complaining about the length of a comic as opposed to the ratio of how much happens per 100 pages.
Yeah,
and it's a different style. Like I like the density of the comics that I read. The density is part of the addictiveness for me, I guess. And so when I read a really overextended American comic, I have the same problem, but it's just not as intense a problem compared to the small amount of manga I've read. And again, it's not always the case, because obviously it's not the case with Ito. I don't know if people know about Sturgeon's Law anymore, but I think it's that it was a famous science fiction writer defending science fiction, because people say, oh, all science fiction is crap. Sturgeon said, well, 90% of any art form is crap. So if you don't like an art form, you just pick up a random piece of it and you can probably say it's crap, because you're more likely to pick up crap than the good stuff.
Wow.
So, and I'm sure that's, part of my problem. But before we talk forever about manga, let's move on. Earl Grey, do you have something else you want to show us?
It shows manga now.
That's fine.
No, I defend Europe. This one here, I guess this one was the comic that Terrence showed off a month ago or 2 months, or when we started it. I guess it's by, I just showcase it because it was drawn by one Will. His art name. And a very watercolory style, and one of them, you can say it is one of these color direct guys. And I got back to his origins, his start, so to speak. 40 years earlier, he started with a series called in German Harry und Platte.
Harry, very different.
Yeah, pretty different. But at the same time, you will recognize the style. There's one hairy guy, the one here, and the one with the clean head, Boldy, yeah. And in France, they are called Tif et Tendu, and I looked it up. Tif is, I guess, for hairy, and Tendu for cut.
Bold.
Bold. However, and I really love this watercolor cover.
Yeah, I love that cover too. I love the way it's framed and the angle of the picture and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's so sad that this cover here never was printed and published, and so the whole story in black and white that after actually 2 stories in black and white and sometimes colored. This one here was published in serialized form in Spirou, I guess, in Belgium, but afterwards not. So why do I show you this? Because I really feel that this plays to lots of my teacups, lots of stuff that I like. And especially this 50s feeling that here we have our guy. So if you look at this page, we have a panel over there. You have our 2 guys, Harry und Platte, or Tif et Tendu. And the evil guy at the table is one guy called Shock, and he's the adversary. He's the villain in the story. Mm-hmm. And you get all these James Bondish vibes, I guess. And
a cow theme.
How?
A cow theme to the furniture?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And this modern furniture and design is pretty much stuff that you will find in Darwin Cook's comics as well. I mean, Darwin Cook's style is borrows a lot of stuff from the 50s. I mean, if you look at his Parker comics,
he's in love with the 50s.
Yeah, and I'm in love with it. It is fascinating these years that were before you existed, and there's some magic or interesting stuff to it. So Will drew these. Yeah, as you can see, cars are very important in European comics. As
very much so.
That theme continues.
yeah, and I think they're beautiful, charming stories in which people don't get killed, but they knock their head, and it's really heartwarming. And I think it's pretty funny. These Harry and Platte are actually. I just can't think of them differently than a gay couple. I mean, they sleep in the same bed or in beds alongside each other, next to each other, exactly. And so it would be if they try to do some modern comic with a homosexual couple. I would say Harry and Platte, you wouldn't have changed even the origins for them. You just have to tell a story that was obvious just from the start, but never could. Nobody could talk about it because, we are in the 50s for real, and the 50s for real were not so funny. Yeah. Okay, and what's absolutely heartwarming, I guess it is, or very interesting. With all these books comes the history of Belgian comics, in a way, and we get a lot of these the art stuff, but behind the scenes stuff. So we have here our artist Will, and he's here amongst the family of the brother of Gigi, and I would say for me it's somehow clear that the biggest and most important character in European comics is not Möbius, but Gigi. And Gigi is this guy there. I hope you can see it. And there on the wall next, close to him, is Will. But Gigi taught Will the art of painting and drawing and so on, and he included him into his family. And we have another photo. On the left, we have Will, and the other guy is Gigi. And Gigi later on taught Möbius how to draw. Möbius was an assistant of Gigi. And the very first pages of Blueberry were drawn partwise by Gigi, and you can't tell when Möbius took over because Möbius was so similar to Gigi's style. And not only Möbius was there and Will, but Morris, the draughtsman of the artist behind Lucky Luke, who was Franquin, Spirou, the artist behind Spirou. They all met there, and they were all a circle of friends. And fascinating.
That's interesting.
Almost what Portland is today to comic.
I'm starting to wonder if, like, the people all the different comic artists who live in Portland, if they actually do know each other. I'm not even sure. Like some of the ones I've heard talk about, I'm not sure if they know each other anymore.
Yeah, just all these guys that pop up on YouTube. It's pretty. And Bühler, I couldn't believe it that he is really in your fair town as well.
Oh, Bueller, he lives here.
Yeah, and but I really think that his living room and all his flat is it's a TV studio.
It is
right now.
It's literally he built by himself an amazing TV studio. And now he's going to tear it all apart and sell his house and go on the road.
Really?
Yeah, his plan is to move to move out in March and live the van life, and continue to do his channel while traveling the country.
Well, that's going to be a tiny studio.
Yeah, I don't think he'll have a real studio anymore.
Maybe just going to be a background. It's like, look, this is the Nevada Falls or whatever, Niagara Falls there in the background.
Exactly. Yeah, I think he'll be doing that.
Yeah.
There's something I was going to say about. Once I was in a cafe hanging out with Bill Crabtree, and a couple tables over was the editor of from Dark Horse, who now got fired for some controversy. What's his name? And he was sitting talking to I'm forgetting everyone's name.
It's the curse of this channel. Name forgetting. Fog.
Oh well, he was sitting talking to an artist I remembered from the 80s, and at the counter of the cafe, I had talked to the guy working there, and he's working on his own comic book. But none of these people noticed each other. I felt like I was the only one who noticed that all these comic book people were in the same.
You're like a fan guy. Like, oh look!
Scott Alley, that's it, right, Scott Connor. It was Scott Alley, who has a very distinctive mop of hair, and I've seen him around town a lot, so I recognized him. And I recognized the artist whose name I still can't remember because I've seen him at a lot of conventions. He now self-publishes and kickstarts his own comics.
Oh, okay.
Wish I could remember his name. He's a good artist. Anyway, that was kind of where I was thinking. All these people don't really know who each other are, even though they're all in Portland. So it looks like comic. Oh, are you with us, Terrence, or should we skip order?
I'm here. Yep.
Oh,
I have a special guest.
Hi.
She's gonna take my turn.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay, go ahead. You're on.
I just read this book.
Show them again. Hold them again. Yeah.
I remember them. The Lego Friends.
So, it's about them in one of the stories. It says lion in distress, and
show them some pages there. Lion in distress is what she was saying.
And there's so there's a lion stuck in the tree.
It's always hard to point on YouTube.
Right.
And so one of the friends are trying to sing it to get down, and one of the friends are doing, that's so wrong.
No, I'll just keep showing the paint. Keep going.
And then some of the friends are doing yarn, and the lion gets down from the yarn, but then they think from the singing it ran away, and they thought, because then they were fighting, but actually in the bushes there was a mother, a mother in it. So
there's nice colors on the book. So what did you think of this? Did you like, is this a collection? It looks like a collection of short stories.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Because one of the things I like about it is because in one of the stories it has a babysitting job, and they're babysitting, but then so they're babysitting, and then at the end of those pages there's how you could do can you hold it?
Yep.
How you can do make your own business or something.
Right.
Or
nice.
A lemonade stand, or
Nice.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
so
cool.
How to become an entrepreneur. There we go. Want a job. There we go. That's the page.
Wow.
Cool. So it's one of your favorites? Do you think that this is out of the comics, the graphic novels you've been reading? Is this one of your favorites, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, you love it, hey? Yeah.
Yeah.
What other graphic novels are you reading these days? Who's one of your other favorites? Jedi. Well, yeah, Babysitters. Yeah, Babysitters. Absolutely, yeah.
Club, and then Jedi Academy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Those are fun ones too. Hey?
Yeah, my daughter read all the Babysitter Club ones. Those were good. I didn't know about the Jedi Academy.
I'm on the 9th on Babysitters Club.
Oh, wow.
Very nice. Yeah, Gore Vidal says hi too. She says, "Is your dad behaving?" Very poorly, Gore. Behaving very badly. Right on.
You got to train up that dad to behave better.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you for joining us, Lillian.
Thank you.
Are you okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Have a good afternoon.
That was cool. I didn't know that Lego had done those videos. I mean, those comics. Because I've seen all the videos with my daughter a number of years ago.
Okay. Yeah, they're all over the place. Those Lego kids, you know, they're all over the place. You can't get away from them.
It's you know, when we were kids, there weren't as many things focused on the female characters.
Right.
So I think that's part of the popularity of the Lego Friends.
Yeah,
that's good. I'm glad.
Yeah, even in the Jedi Academy stuff, I mean, the main character is a boy, but it's you know, the group that he hangs around with. There's a female character there as well too that's very strong. You know, so it seems to be it's much easier to find those things, which is great for her because I mean, even when we went for just free comic book day, there's so many choices for kids, right? And there's a lot of really positive choices for girls as well too, which is great. Yeah.
None of us really want to try to point our kids towards the Lego Friends comics, but they end up there anyway.
Right.
But did I already tell you guys about how when I used to try to get, I was constantly trying to find comics to read with my daughter. And so at first I was like reading her Stan Lee and Jack Kirby Fantastic Four. And she was extremely upset at the Sue Storm aspect of things. I had just never even noticed that till I read it with a girl.
Yeah,
and
you
then,
can notice.
And then we read
girl.
Tintin, and she noticed that there were no girls at all. And we would look in the backgrounds; the crowds would just be all men. And except for that opera singer, there was just never any females at all.
And by the way, this girl here, the artist had a really hard time to get her into the story. First, the publisher said no, it has to be about a boy. So the comic went away, a while by the name of Starter, and the boy was Starter, and he drove the car and he did everything what's cool in it, but the artist put all the time this girl into the story. So and she took over after a while. And,
well, good for the artist putting her in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank God for some of them.
For some reason, Hergé forgot there were females in the world.
Yeah, there's this other European guy. I don't know if you know Alex. It's a story about a Roman boy.
I think I've seen it, but I've never read it.
Jacques Martin drew it, and Batman and Robin is strange sometimes.
Yes,
but with the Jacques Martin stories, you get really lots of these homoerotic vibes between an older guy and a young boy, and the whole world is made out of men and boys. I mean, I have some comics of him, and it's okay, but after other artists took over and did their own stuff with these stories, Alex is really almost not readable if you have this thing in mind that there's always this old guy with the boy. And it's don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a better time to be a girl now, I think, especially when reading comics.
Probably.
So I think next is Rasa.
that way. Anyway, Hopefully you can hear this. I don't know how far I'm gonna get into the story, but
just remember.
This is the audiobook I was talking about like 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Of Sandman?
Yeah.
And desire walks the chambers of the fortress of their heart. They walk the threshold.
Anyway, this is just a sample of what I was doing.
He sounds very pleased with himself.
Oh, he is very much pleased with himself. So I finally I finished this volume 2 of the series, actually. So the Dollhouse of Neil Gaiman. So I was, as I said to you guys before earlier, I was doing this audiobook just to catch up to where I was. I read before for like about 3 years ago. I started reading Sandman, but never started because of I got pregnant. I got my son now. He's 3.5, and then I was like never had time to do this. But now I went to library. I picked up quite a few volumes, and I managed to finish volume 2. And I absolutely got into it. Really, it's an extremely entertaining read for sure. And but it starts with this volume in particular starts with this tale in the sand. So this granddad and his son is going into this trip where they have to tell this tale. And it's really fascinating. It's actually a really good storyline. And it says to this grandson, sit down, I'll tell you the story, and I'll tell you the story only once. And my dad or my granddad told me the story. And we're talking about this town which existed, who doesn't know anything about it. Basically, it's not nobody knows about it. It's like a hidden secret. And then it's really a really good start. I think I was like, it's just like on off kiss. Like it's not really what we were getting in the first volume, of course. So I really enjoyed it because it had, of course, Sandman in the storyline. Because Sandman in the story appeared as a black man, and he had a different form himself, which I was like interested. Why would you go there? And then this queen, she was in charge of this town and basically all society and stuff. And she sees this guy for once, and she falls in love, and she starts looking for it. And you have this bird king she comes to talk to and ask if he sees this guy. And there's this myth when the bird comes, you basically and tells a story that you have to eat this fire petal or bloom, and then you can go into realm of the dreaming. Kahul, yes. Ragamuffin. So she does that, and she meets our guy sitting in the throne. So anyway, it's really good tale. It ends in a bad way because she's basically falls in love with him like she was there, but it ended up because of what they had sex together. The town disappeared, and not disappeared. It basically kind of like got destroyed and stuff like that. And that's how nobody knew in that era that this actually even existed. So it's really well told, the beginning story. And also they had in this volume they have another story which is kind of like a little bit bizarre because maybe it took the break, maybe in the publishing scheme. I'm not sure how it was in that time, and because I didn't read comic books in the time when this Sandman series came out. The Men of Good Fortune story, where Sandman comes in this tavern to talk to this guy who believes that dying is rubbish. He says it's literally. He says like, "Oh, dying is rubbish. Death is stupid. I don't want nothing to do with it." So Death makes basically a pact with him. Say, if you feel like you're not gonna die, that in 100 years I come and visit in the same pub or tavern in that times, and we having conversation. And it happens for 400 years. So the guys continue not dying. They keep on meeting in different eras, and they having conversations. So in this sense, it's like really good, entertaining read. But even though it's not even concerns our main actual story. And it's funny in here, in this era, we actually Sandman meets William Shakespeare. So this guy in here, he's basically, apparently, according to Neil Gaiman, Sandman made a deal with him to make him more popular. So apparently he had hush story with him. He doesn't even reveal us in this story what he was telling to William Shakespeare, but apparently he made him more assured of himself to do whatever he was doing, because other people were making fun of him. So that was the interesting part of the tale. And then, of course, the guy who was meeting every single time in the tavern, he accused him of being lonely. And it's like, how dare you call a Sandman he comes to meet you just here to need a friend? I'm just here for my amusement, kind of thing. So that was interesting. And also he touched a Jack the Ripper era as well, which was, it has the same kind of feel of it in the panels as well. So yeah, very good, those two stories, but in particularly the whole story of the dollhouse is absolutely fascinating, because it's basically continues from the first volume, Prelude on Nocturnes, I think, is that what it calls, or the first 10 issues, I think. So Dollhouse starts with the Desire character, and all the characters are got involved from, as I say, from previous volume. So we have Rose Walker, who apparently she's a granddaughter of this girl who fall asleep for 40 years, and then she's the daughter. She comes to visit, and basically she finds out that she's a vortex. And then it's really, this panel, it was quite crazy in this book. So you have to go this way to read some of the parts. The crazy panel, which is actually spread quite nicely, even though it wasn't a trade paperback, but it's really nicely drawn. It's really, really well drawn. It's very entertaining, and it's very, I'll show you guys about this guy. So this is Corinthian. It's one of the creations of Sandman, but his face is created by teeth. So eyes and mouth, teeth, which is, there's a story in here. But yeah, very, I read through it, like I couldn't stop, because I just wanted to know exactly what's going to happen with this Corinthian guy, because he freaked me out because of his eyes, of course. And so what happened with him, it was there's this convention, and they call it cereal, like breakfast cereal, and you're like thinking, what is this all about? Welcome to cereal convention. I was like, okay. And then you see this like really wacky dudes. I was like, this is not really a cereal, is it? It's a serial killers. So it's a serial killers convention. And of course, our main character Rose in the story, she was in the same hotel room, like a hotel building anyway. And and this is the Corinthian in present time, because basically when Sandman got abducted, all these creatures were able to basically leave the dreaming and go into the real life. So Corinthian decided to go do the same thing, and what he's passionate about is, of course, killing and murdering. And the way he does murder is eats those eyes, which I showed you previously. It actually eats people's eyeballs. That's his thing that actually ticks him really nicely and makes him really excited about. So yeah, it's really good. I don't know. It's difficult. Like I'm going from one point to another one because there's so many things happening in here. And this Vortex girl, the Rose Walker, was really entertaining because it's actually really come up with, like, you have the ongoing series, but we managed to basically get the character from the beginning to the end, and we found out the end of the character, which was really good. And I think sometimes, like for a long-lasting comic book, it's quite difficult to do, but this was well made, and it had a lot of like uneasiness and stuff in the panel, like the subjects they were approaching, especially in that serial convention. Like they were talking about how the way they think that they are there to clean up on those sheeps, and they're above everybody else, even though they are humans, and they're really fucked up in the head. But apparently Corinthian was all doing of that. They basically came into their psyche. And also we have a flying lady with the boobies, just to get in the theme of our comic book reading. Carmen. But yeah, the Carmen. So yeah, it's very good. I cannot wait to the next volume, which I'm going to read, of course, as soon as I can. But this audiobook has definitely gave me the feel, even better feel of the characters, because of the way, okay, they employ the actors, voice actors, to do that and give you that, because it has all the background volume, like the surroundings as well. It just gives you a little bit more oomph maybe to the series as well. But I just kept going with this one. I just kept going in my own head with those characters as well. But it just gives you that mysterious vibe to it. But it's definitely really entertaining read. And it's uncomfortable sometimes, but it's especially because kind of like those graphics, some graphic scenes, how they. One of a guy who the journalist was pretending to be a serial killer, so he went in this convention. So they found out, and they basically brutally murdered him in here as well. So there's some scenes like in here where probably I would be very subjected to dreaming it next, like tonight probably.
Your cover has an adult sticker on it.
Yes, that's because it's from the library. So
the library, the librarians realize it's not a kid's comic.
No, definitely not. I highly would not recommend the kids to look at it, because there's this story. So there's one of the characters Rose Walker has met. He was another creature, of course, of the Dreaming Land, and he was telling a simple story about Red Riding Hood, and he said to you, "I'm going to tell you the real Red Riding Hood story." And then basically, not the real one, but one of the real stories of Red Riding Hood, where she's basically, like, literally gets murdered. And then later on stages, they were telling you how. I'm trying to find the page while I'm talking and saying to you, this is the page of this Red Riding Hood. So, and he says, when the girl got into the bed, she said, "Grandmother, how hairy you are! It keeps me warmer, my dear. Oh, grandmother, what long nails you have! They are scratching myself, my dear." And then, "Oh, grandmother, big teeth you have! They are for you, eating you, my dear." And he ate her, and she's like in a really bad state, this girl. And he's telling her the story to just make her a little bit easy, like life is not so bad as the story can be, kind of thing. So it was funny. By the way, so yeah, absolute fantastic assignment so far. So volume 2 in, and I'm hooked. So hopefully volume 3 will be next on my agenda, and I can guys talk to you about it and tell you, because I really
be reminded how good Sandman was.
The art is spot on. Even though this is it even says in here it's a recolored edition, and it's compare that with several pages on Google. You can find digital edition. It looks exactly like digital editions. But the art, it's really works. I don't know, this kind of, they really managed to like have a great, like, even this story, for example, was drawn. I was thinking Chris Pacello. This is the artist, and you can't really see Chris Pacello yet in here, who Chris Pacello's style is, but that's what he was there as well. Even guest artists were managing to portray the same similar vibe to them, which is really, I think it helps the storyline. But yeah, it's the world where you get into, and you definitely, I think it's what Neil Gaiman so far is doing for me with this storyline, is that he managed to tell you, like in this whole volume, you can just read probably this, and you kind of would like to know backstory, so you still need to read the volume 1, but it wraps it up quite nicely for the character, which is great, so you can move on to other things. Because what basically first volume doing for you is it gets captured. It captures for 100 odd years, and then he gets freed. And then all the items he has lost while he was captured, and all the characters got involved because of dreaming. The dream world wasn't working properly, and there's some certain people who were dreaming for long time. He's basically continuously going into the storyline. So I really liked it. And Doll's House is really kind of freaky in a way, but it's really well told. And that vortex explanation was perfect, and how it ended, it was very satisfaction, because it's
it's a good example for a good horror in comics. The Corinthian alone, as a character, is really creepy. It really crept me out. And the better afterwards, at some place, a dream it's basically it's a creature of dream. He just put him in the palm of his hand and crumbled him. So go away, little creature. I recreate you another day. So this horrible creature with the teeth in his eyes was it's just a puppet for storytelling.
Also, another creepy story was with the brother of the Rose Walker. So he was basically, you know, like parents gets divorced. So one child goes one way, another child goes another way. And this boy gets away to his dad's side, and dad's die, and then gets taken by uncle or whatever. And they put him in the basement. They treat him just for money because the government gives you money for a certain child benefits, I guess, what they call them anyway. And he's been completely mistreated. The rats were eating him away. But then what's worse for him was that the creatures from the dreaming, which there's two, I forgot the name of them, but went to his brain and just made the complete like a party inside his brain where they completely corrupted his dream world and made it so real for him that he had to relive. And he's like, what, 6, 7 years old boy who had to do that in his head, and how fucked up can that be? You know, like, and there's those creatures that are like, oh, okay, I just want to escape the dreaming world, but we need to hide and we need to make sure that the Sandman not going to catch us. And their first idea was, oh, let's go into boy's head and deal with that kind of situation. So in that kind of sense, it's quite creepy and stuff like that. So yeah, it has elements of like kind of a grotesque vibe, let's say it this way. But yeah, it's the way he deals with it and how he tells the story. It's, yeah. And it's a little Nemo's world, which is great.
It's funny, I never made that connection from Sandman to Little Nemo.
Yeah. But yeah, it's as I say, I know why lots of people are talking about it, but it's really easy to read as well. Another thing, maybe. It's not overcomplicate your minds, even though it has some subcontext as well, because it takes every other characters and it puts them in the storyline, continues the storyline. So you have to kind of follow through, and it rewards you for that as well, which is great. So I like that a lot. So, yeah.
And we just watched Princess Mononoke last night, and I didn't realize till last night that Neil Gaiman had a hand in the translation there too, from Japanese to the American dubbed version. So yeah, just my little Neil Gaiman tidbit. There you go.
Very good. I like the Princess Mononoke.
So good. It's so good.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, I know the guy has a hype, but this was something I've not touched for a long time, and it's always been on my reading list back in my head somewhere, saying go read Sandman, because I remember Ghost Critic in those days when he's absolutely passionate about it, and that passion was just like, go just do the reading, because he was so I don't know, it made it even more dreamlike. Reading things, so I just wanted to get into, and it's honestly it's a great world to get into. So
yeah, I mean, what's amazing is how Gaiman produced story after story after story within the big structure, and most of them were very good. Someone said they didn't like the Seasons in the Mist, but I like that one. But like they just finished up this Dreaming, the Waking Hours, and it started strong and then it kind of fizzled. And I was like, and this is a writer that I used to have a high opinion of, G. Willow Wilson, but it's just not easy to do what Gaiman did, I think, to maintain that momentum. For what did he do it for? 70 issues or something?
Yeah, 76, I think.
So she couldn't maintain the momentum for 12 issues.
The artist is the Brazilian artist or Portuguese artist? What is
in here?
Yeah.
You're thinking of the other Dreaming. This is a second Dreaming volume, which is Nick Robles, who he might be Brazilian also, but I think you're thinking of Bilquis Evely.
Yes, that's the one.
He's a very good artist, and I still need to go back and read that series.
That's just for her art. I probably just would take it, even though the story probably, if it's not good, but her art is absolutely fantastic for that series.
Right.
So
yeah, and that right now she's doing the Tom King Superman series.
Oh no, it's gonna ruin her. Sorry, I don't like Tom King that much. So
well, it looks very nice.
My experience, I have not read anything. Whatever, it just hypes up so high for lots of things, and when you I don't know. It seems to be just it goes back down to the Earth where it's supposed to be, kind of thing. So, no, it's just the way I feel about Tom King's writing.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit different than other Tom King series, I would say, but it's only.
Oh yeah, because you were reading. Weren't you reading that the space one with
Strange Tales?
Yeah.
Strange Adventures. Yeah.
Strange Adventures. Did you enjoy that one as his writing?
Yes and no.
That's what Tom King is. Like yes or no. Never
I'm
yes,
enjoying
yes,
the
yes.
Supergirl one more so far.
Oh, okay. Because she has two swords. Is that the series with the swords? She has a sword?
There is one issue with swords. Every issue is actually different. So every issue she's on a different planet.
All right, I see.
But I thought I don't know if Earl, I know you're getting this in single issues. Have you gotten this issue yet?
No, not yet.
Well, I also wanted to warn you, there's a story in here. This is Skybound X number 5. So I don't know if you go to a shop physically and can grab this.
No.
So sorry to tell you about it then.
Is it important?
No, it's just a nice story. It's a backstory about Trigger Keaton. It takes place. Here, I'll make myself big. It takes place on a movie shoot that Trigger Keaton was doing with a monkey, which makes, wasn't there a Clint Eastwood movie that he did with monkeys, or a series of movies? So, but Trigger doesn't like the monkey and he starts beating it up.
Of course he does.
So the monkey trainer releases the other monkeys to go fight with the monkey against him. And he beats up all the monkeys. But one thing I noticed here is I liked the coloring here more. I'm very pedestrian, I guess, in my taste. It was more multicolored, and I thought it really helped Schweitser's art, whereas the color in the regular issue, looks like this. I still loved this issue. I mean, you should look forward to getting it. It's really good. But if somewhere you get a chance, depending on how much you like the 6 sidekick story, it is a fun side story to go with it. Maybe they'll publish it in the trade later, but I don't know if you want the trade at this point. And this seems to be them in
single issues. It would be anyhow.
This seems to be the final issue of Skybound X, and the only thing that was a continuing story in Skybound X was this Rick Grimes 2000, where Rick Grimes is a super fighter against aliens using zombies, and it just got sillier and sillier with every issue. So I don't know. The little bit of Walking Dead I read was not like this at all. So I don't know if even Walking Dead fans need this, but maybe it seems more like it would appeal to fans of Invincible, perhaps.
Because of the art.
Because of the art and the just over-the-topness of everything. I guess I shouldn't spoil the end, but I think it was just a spoof of 70s sci-fi comics. I think that's what the point of it all was. And then also in this issue was a sneak peek at a new series that Kirkman's going to be doing, sadly with the artist Jason Howard. And I say sadly because I really like Jason Howard's solo work, where he writes and draws. And so I hope he's not committing himself to a long series with Kirkman. It's called Code, Combat Orb Defense Engines. Maybe it will never, I'm hoping it will never become an actual series, because it just reminds me of some, it's supposed to be science fiction, but it reminds me of some over-the-top early image sort of team superhero kind of story with, you can sort of see in this pose here where they just all have battle armor, and they all kind of think they're better than each other, and they fight some unnamed enemy who's either aliens or robots. You can't even tell. So that's strange. And then they also had a short story from Gasolina, which I never read. And this one had amazing art. Who's the artist? They don't give the credits till the end. Nico Walter. But it makes me wonder about Gasolina. I couldn't tell what it was about from this short story. This woman goes underwater and battles this gruesome mermaid and cuts open the mermaid, I think. Or maybe maybe the mermaid just has kids trapped in these egg-like things. And when I first read it, now I'm thinking differently. I thought, see here, she's cutting into the mermaid. I thought she cut into the mermaid and pulled the kid out, but I think she's actually, so she's rescuing kids from this monstrous mermaid. And that's pretty much the vignette here. So I don't know if anyone knows about Gasolina and whether it was any good. I feel like it came out 4 or 5 years ago. I seem to remember that title. But I actually enjoyed this Skybound X series and was a little sad that that's the end of it. But you can just pick up individual issues if there's something in them that interests you, like the 6 of the Trigger Keaton one. So that's, how are we doing in terms of people's wakefulness? Do we want to go another round, or have we had enough? We've been going for about 2.5 hours.
I'm okay too. I'm okay, but I've showed you what I've read so far. So this took my whole attention, the Sandman, really, that graphic novel. So
right, well, that's a lot to read. Yeah.
So you guys, if you have something to say, please share. I wanted to ask you, actually, anybody knows about this? I've not read it. I've seen a lot.
Granville? I've not heard.
By Brian Talbot.
Oh.
It's an English guy. So I thought maybe somebody else maybe knows, but this is just recently. It's actually the whole collection came out. It's a detective Badger. So I was like, okay, detective, I wouldn't mind, but maybe somebody else knew, but I guess not many. I'm just very curious because I always wanted to get in. It's everywhere in here, because it's English yeah.
I once read The Story of a Rat, which was art-wise total disappointment. He traced through photos and.
Or is it?
Yeah, because it was a disappointment because he has really he's celebrated by certain people. Especially the thing that you shown there is maybe much better. Maybe he's some kind of artist who sometimes works in very different styles. So I don't know, but The Story of a Rat was nothing, really not good.
He did. Did he do that Luther Arkwright as well too? Because they were talking about it in the chat earlier. I think that might have been him as well too. Yeah, that Tales of a Rat or whatever. I've seen it in the bins, and it didn't look spectacular by any stretch.
And yeah, story-wise, it was really very pedagogic. With you have to live this way. So,
okay. So it's like
with some kind of morale that is shown into your face.
I see, because I've seen him, like, this is another volume I have of Sandman from the library. He worked with him as well, like you see Brian Talbot in there, so I was like, I saw his name, and that's how I discovered some things, by doing something else. So
now you're saying it, I'm pretty sure that I've seen other stuff by him as well.
Yeah, so I know he worked in a couple of UDC and Vertigo things, as far as I remember seeing his name, but I'm not. That's the thing. And I know that he's well known for this, because of this. He's been doing it for a couple of volumes, but I never went into it. I guess I should just pick up, maybe, hopefully find it in library, which is most likely I would be able to, and see how I feel about it, rather than committing to buying something,
I'm afraid I can't say goodbye to you without holding this book here into your face. I mean, I did a video about it, but it's such a pretty book, and it's such a fascinating book, and it's so out there and different than all the others. I mean, I can't do it justice in this format here right now, but it's it's really a work of art that is a comic story as well. And just when I show you some pages, it's maybe clear that he tried on many levels. Brecht Evans, I'm talking about Brecht Evans, Belgian artist. The story is called A City of Belgium, published by Drawn and Quarterly. And he paints each and every panel with watercolor. And it's a unique thing. Yeah, and there was some interview with him about his older work Panther, in which he said that he was mad, literally mad after ending it. So he had to do a break, because you can't believe that this is the work of just one artist alone. And all the stuff that he's trying here, this dancing couple, it's about nightlife in the city and what happens there, and reality becomes dreamlike and back again, and there's some mythological quality to these encounters in the nighttime here. And we have some characters that we follow through the night. So there are some simultaneous stories unfolding. Some are ended on some page, like they're drifting just out of your focus, and some will stay with you until the end. And I just can say it again and again, each double page is so beautiful, and a unity of color and form, and inventful to no end. And the story really makes sense. I mean, there's always, at least with Panther, it was a bit stretched out, the story, even though it was really, it was really a horror story, actually. And here some reference to M.C. Escher. So, yeah. Highly recommended. I just, for certain, one of the books of the year for me.
Right. After I saw
was that an American publisher?
I ordered it.
Drawn and Quarterly.
Drawn and Quarterly.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
No excuse.
I ordered it from one of my shops. There was 2 shops in town. Each of them only got 1 copy in, and of course it was sold, so I was able to get one on order. So hopefully that comes soon. Looks beautiful.
It seems there's a bit of a hype going on, but a deserved hype, at least over here, and yeah.
Talking about Brian Talbot, I found one of the pages.
We're revealed as phonies because of our lack of Luther Arkwright knowledge.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That's not bad.
Brian Talbot,
it's totally different than the other story.
I feel like Brian Talbot did something with Neil Gaiman. I'm trying to remember what it was. I feel like I had it in Taboo, the Taboo magazine.
Oh, is it? Okay, interesting.
But it's been a long time.
But then you see another page of his we done. If I can open the quickly enough.
Wasn't it just a take on Granville, or how this? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the original artist behind it, I guess.
And that's his other comic book
okay.
style.
Yeah. This is Brian Talbot. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see. So interesting. Anyway, just food for thought.
Did you have anything else you wanted to throw at us, Terrence?
Oh, sure. Let's end it off with this, with some Free Comic Book Day. I had a chance to sit and read this Tales of a Grown-Up Nothing fun girl from Elizabeth Pick from Silver Sprocket. And for the tags, we can tag this under ComicKkrakk finds boners in comics. There you go. So even if it is a fat on boner, it's boner is a boner is a boner is a boner.
À la bonne heure.
This was a really actually fun read. It was this kind of, just these kind of short stories, short strips about this kind of, instead of the stereotypical loser kind of guy, this is a loser girl who just kind of bums around and gets these jobs and quits these jobs and annoys her friends. And, it was really, really fun, actually. A really quick, fun read. And I loved the thank you very much, Ragamuffin. Thank you. I love the art and the coloring in this, and some of those facial features I thought were really fun. And it's just ridiculous and silly. And this was a really nice free comic book day score. So I'm going to have a look. I haven't looked any further yet to see what else this artist, Elizabeth, has done, or how much work of this particular character there is. I imagine it's a character that she has written a bunch for. So yeah, stuff like this, trying to skateboard and falls flat on her face, and pushing a kid off a skateboard so she could try it out herself, and just really great. Yeah, that's not much else to say about that other than comics are fun, right? That's it.
Yeah, I often will find something kind of intriguing at Free Comic Book Day, and then it's not clear where to find it. Like, I guess it's going to be a graphic novel coming out later, but you don't know when. Or that's kind of odd.
That comic book you just showed, Terrence, looks like very much like a kid's cover, and I wonder if the kids picked up and said, "Oh, Daddy, look, what is this?" Looks kids friendly kind of thing.
It does.
It was funny when I was at the comic shop, and I was, because this was 204 Comics, and it's not Lillian wasn't with me at the time. I was gonna get this for her, but thankfully I did have a quick look through and see some of those pages and go, "Oh, I see." And I should have known from the Silver Sprocket logo. That's not a kid's kind of company, so it's a good thing I looked. And also, thankfully, right on the back, it does say rated M for mature as well, too. So it's a good thing I flipped through it before handing it over.
But I'm sure a lot of parents did not look at that at all.
No.
Right.
Because Free Comic Book Day, kids go like, "Oh, it's free, so you can just pick stuff up," and they just pick. I remember seeing it as well in other kids and families. Like, I mean, imagine you just say "bona," explain that to the child. What is this? It would be a very awkward conversation in a comic book shop, especially.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So.
And this was the book that Earl Grey was talking about before, but then Lillian came in, this Garden of Desire. It was great to see the earlier work. I haven't found any of the earlier work at all, but you can absolutely see the style. And I mean that the coloring and everything in the art is gorgeous. I know I've talked about this to death before in a video, but it's well worth checking out again. Good reminder there. I guess we could have done, we're running out of time now, but we could have done our now.
I thought of that at the last minute after you said you were going to be on, but I feel like I need to reread now at this point.
Need a review
next week.
It's elusive. It's your guys' elusive comic book you never talk about. It's just show the picture like, "Oh, talk, no, that's okay, bye." Next week.
I'll just quickly mention some comics that might be of interest to some of you guys. Where am I? I can go like that, I think. This Snelson comedy is dying about this irreverent comedian on tour. And I just realized on the cover, that's a cow anus we're seeing.
Oh,
front and center.
Earl Grey is not approving.
It's just a realistic drawing of a cow, I guess. But I just thought that was funny that they included that. And I guess maybe I thought most of Terrence and his love of underground comics, because it feels like a mainstream version of an underground comic somehow. It's just following this guy on tour, and he's having little arguments with people and characters, and then this girl very aggressively picks him up at a bar, and we get a very graphic sex scene between him and her. That's for Terrence. She's punching him. I forget why.
See, no boner though. No boner.
Oh, because he doesn't want her. He doesn't want her to call him daddy while they're having sex, so she starts punching him.
Oh,
it's really effed up. Oh, and then a cow does lick him, but no more cow anal on the anus on the inside. So I'm just really curious where this comic could go. I think it's 6 issues, but I feel like I got the whole comic in one issue. But...
Are you going to show another comic? Because I don't want to see this in my dreams.
Yes, I am. Although Eat the Rich is very disturbing. You don't want this in your dreams.
No. Go on, show us. I'm actually quite curious to see what it's all about inside.
Yeah, I almost picked it up myself. I didn't.
It's about this young girl who is dating someone in the super rich world, and she's hoping to travel in that world someday. They're both going to law school, and he at first doesn't want to go back because he's taking her to meet his parents, basically, because he's sort of given up on alcohol, and he's worried going back to this world will make him go back to it. But then they go to a retirement party. They do these big retirement parties for their servants. And, well, the retirement party isn't really a retirement party. Let's put it that way. And so I don't know where they can go with this either. It was very creepy and disturbing, but basically the rich eat their servants. And that seems to be the whole thing. So I don't know where we're going there. But it's an interesting comic, and talk about horror, because I could feel, as we slowly moved into the rich people's world, I felt uneasy the whole time. Because of the title of the comic and the cover, I just felt like I knew something bad was going to happen.
Yeah,
especially to her eventually. And another really interesting one, I forget if I reviewed it in my last, The Me You Love in the Dark. Because it's all about an artist. I like books about writers, and comic books about artists seem like a good idea to me, even though I would think they don't have as big of an audience as your typical thing. So it's about an artist with artist block, I guess, like writer's block. She can't get started on a painting anymore. Her career has just started to take off. So she's rented this old house that there's a rumor that it's haunted, and she's trying to get started with her art. And she's talking to the ghost that she doesn't believe is actually there. And at the end of the issue, the ghost actually talks to her. So I don't know where they can go with this. But I really like the art in here, and I'm interested to see, because it's the writer, Scotty Young, is an artist, to see what he has to say about the struggle of being an artist and all of that. So I thought some of you might be interested in that.
Artist block is kind of a real thing, to be honest. If you start continuing drawing for continuous time, it becomes like your head becomes nothing. It's like and your hand doesn't want to move in the same thing. So anything becomes uninteresting. So I guess I presume she's trying to jar her mind up. So
that's why she moved to this haunted house.
Yeah.
And so far it's not working. And I think, on top of that, she has pressure from her gallery because her last show was successful. So I think, people often get writer's block on their second novel. I can imagine you get artist block after your first big success. Artist block, did I say? Yeah. And this art is a real pleasure, and to see this Jorge Corona and Jean-Francois Boulot, the colorist, sort of tackle the real world so far is a lot of fun. Previously, they were the artists on Middle West, which also had really good art, but that was more fanciful.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm kind of interested in where that will go. So I think that's all I wanted to cover for today.
Cool.
Anyone else have something else they want to show up, or we're all set?
Bonus.
Just
Bonus bonus. Bonus bonus. Bonus bonus.
Boner. I read this last week, the Defenders #1, and I really dug it. I got quite a kick out of it. The art, for sure, as we talked about last week, was so good, like phenomenal art. And then I saw this on the shelf, this Spirits of Vengeance Spirit Rider, which really caught my attention.
That's the same character who's in the Defenders, I guess. Is it?
Yeah,
Spirit
I think
Rider?
so. And I don't quite know all the kind of backstory of this character.
I had never heard of him before.
It's a her.
Oh, was it a her?
She's an indigenous character who I guess had a previous story where she was called the Demon Rider, I guess. Kushala is her name. Spirit of Vengeance has taken her over, and she I guess was in the Sorcerer Supreme comic with Doctor Strange as well too. So Doctor Strange makes an appearance, and he brings along this Johnny Storm Ghost Rider who has, and her ability is to not kind of, she can enter into someone's subconscious wholly, not just kind of on the astral plane or whatever, but she literally like can enter into their soul and kind of walk with them through their past trauma and things like that. So she deals with that.
Is that
phenomenal?
The same as this character here?
I don't know. From Defenders, Damien? I'm not 100% sure. No.
Oh no. Okay.
No,
I thought
different. Yeah, no, different.
Okay.
And this was a lot of fun. The story itself was so it moved really, really fast. I found it moved very, very fast. But I'm assuming that's because they're trying to lead up to something else. This is just kind of the quick intro, but I love her design and the colors and the art in this is really, really nice. So she kind of decides to, at the end, once she's kind of helped overcome his demon, she kind of just doesn't give it any power. There's this whole guilt thing that plays, and she decides not to feel this need for vengeance and guilt and everything, and that kind of kills the power. And then one of my favorite artists recently, this Jeffrey Verjagi, I can't remember how you pronounce his last name, but he's done a ton of covers for Marvel, some variant covers, and really incredible art. He does one page there. So when she kind of defeats this demon, she decides to go back in time to kind of her people, and kind of face her own trauma about what happened to her tribe of people. They were kind of wiped out, but she's going to go back with this idea of just kind of helping them as opposed to trying to get revenge and try to make things stop. And this is the part where I'm not sure where it's going, and I'm curious to see. And she calls herself the Spirit Rider, is what she's renamed herself as. So it left off on a real nice note of I'm curious. The art had me going through the whole story, but that ending kind of got my attention. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. And like I said, the cover jumped out at me on the shelf. So I figured I'd give it a shot, even with the horrific $4.99 price tag. I figured I'd give it a try. The horror.
The
horror. And then, I read this. I'll talk about this another time, though. This Trenchcoat Brigade, this 4-issue miniseries. This was one of the other things that I picked up with this Faffer and the Grey Mouser. And this was a lot of fun, especially with the characters that are involved. Phantom Stranger, Dr. Occult, Hellblazer, Mr. E. Really, really interesting. I'm not really familiar with Mr. E at all, or Dr. Occult for that matter. So it was nice to see a story with the 4 of them. Amazing covers, really great art inside, and a pretty decent story all around for kind of classic Vertigo. What are we looking at? Yeah, 1999. So yeah, it's pretty much what I read.
Mr. E is Ditko character, isn't it? He created it first.
Mr. A.
I'm not sure who the
it's the I. Okay.
Secrets of Haunted House. Yeah, Mr. A was the other one, but Mr. E came up in the Secrets of Haunted House 35 or 37 or something like that. He can kind of apparently he can see sort of hunts killers, but he can sort of see in a different way because he's a blind man, but has this kind of sort of extrasensory power, I guess. So I'm keeping my eyes out for that original Secrets of Haunted House, see if I can find it.
I was looking for that mini you were showing, and the only one I found on eBay, of course, its cheapest was £20, like for 4 issues. It's quite pricey.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so
yeah, it's mad.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Cool. Sleepy, you're muted.
I want to acknowledge Ragamuffin, who has done a wonderful job annotating many of our episodes.
Yep.
Not to put pressure on him to have to keep doing it, because it's quite a task, I imagine. But it makes watching our past shows much more useful, because they're so long. You may well want to skip around. So if you do go to my playlist, which is linked below, if in the more recent episodes, there will be annotation done by Ragamuffin that allows you to, say, oh, I want to hear what they have to say about that comic, and you can just click to that. Or where they talk about boners and just click to that. So I am just tickled pink that Ragamuffin does that for us. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's really, really good. Yeah, we do appreciate it because they are long haul shows.
Yeah, we like to digress.
That way we can go back and just listen to Earl Grey and no one else if we want.
Yeah.
Just to put more pressure on you.
So who is gonna host next week? Or is it Terrence? Terrence is your turn.
Terrence, or do we know whose turn it is?
I can do it. Yeah, we should have our new internet by then too. So that'll be the.
Oh, you're gonna get a new service. Cool.
Good.
Yeah, we were able to up it a little bit within our area. We have the cheapest plan, which is also part of the problem. 10 megabytes per second download, 3 uploads. So we've bumped that up substantially. So they just have to come to the house this week and fiddle around with whatever the hell they got to fiddle around with and give us that magic. So yeah, next week we'll come to me.
Go to me.
Okay, and if it turns out your internet hasn't been fixed, we can just pick someone else.
Yeah, for sure.
And our very intelligent listeners or viewers can figure it out.
Yeah, totally.
Be sure you're subbed to everybody. Also, all listed below. Well, thanks everyone, and thanks to all the boners people are talking about.
The boner show, I like it.
Excuse me, there is one person.
All right, then the
female representation is there a little bit. Okay.
This comment, à la bonheur in French, I chuckled the whole day long.
Oh, okay.
So, do you read French, Earl?
I had it 2 or 3 years in school, but it was not my best subject. Let's put it that way.
Did you show us something that was in French, or was it just the title that was French?
I sometimes I try when the ratio picture text is more on the picture side. I can figure out things sometimes, but let's say it Sandman or something in French. No way.
Yeah,
but
that would be.
I showed you something in. I guess it. Yeah. Anyhow, sometimes what I do is to put a French book and the English or German one side by side when I have a fancy French version, artist edition or something like that. Then it's a good way.
Yeah.
So Andrew Lopez put something about boners in the comments, and it won't. I have 2 versions of the comments. It will show up on YouTube, but I can't use it on StreamYard now. I can't show it to the audience.
Okay.
He said Lady Boner's next show topic.
Yeah.
Well, Anyway, even though we had Lillian on the show, hopefully there won't be too many young viewers at this stage.
She will be rotten forever. I'm afraid.
But it was a great show. Glad everyone could make it. And next week, we will talk about now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Bye.
À la bonne heure.